This podcast of the Equine Forum is brought to you by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business. It all begins in 15 seconds right after this word from our podcast sponsor.
The University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business is now offering a graduate certificate, which can be completed in 15 or 30 weeks and be done as a standalone or used as 20% of your MBA. Classes at both the undergraduate and graduate level are forming now for August.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
And it's Wise Dan under a hand ride. Now Johnny Velasquez shows him the whip, last 16th of a mile. Wise Dan, a jaw-dropping performance to win the Rico Woodbine Mile.
They go to the final furlong and she's just rolling and rolling with enormous strides. Oh, she's long gone, and Catch a Glimpse is going to absolutely demolish them. And Catch a Glimpse wins the Natalma hands down by 5 lengths. Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Final 16th, Halo Najib taking the lead. Court Vision exploding on the outside. Halo Najib, here comes an acceleration from Court Vision. Court Vision up in the shadow of the wire to get the victory in the Iroquois.
And here comes Set Piece on the far outside. Set Piece set down. Set Piece on the outside, and Alto to dispute it with a furlong left to run. And the far outside is Public Sector trying to pick up. Here's Set Piece to get there. Set Piece in the Baltimore-Washington International Turf Cup.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. It is post time for the show that launched a network, the Equine Forum, all presented by TwinSpires, and all right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, happy to have you back in the starting gate with me again this morning, right up until 11 a.m. Eastern on Sirius 216, XM 204, affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country, and streaming worldwide and podcast on our website, horseracingradio.net, or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, you know, I've been telling you that, and I do believe this is true, that the Horse Racing Radio Network is where horse racing comes to talk. And there is so much to talk about over the course of the next 3 hours. It's not all that often that we get a weekend where we can talk about Breeders' Cup and Kentucky Derby on the same morning. There are some, but it's not all that common. And because of where it falls on the racing calendar, the road to the Kentucky Derby pretty much has nothing to do with Breeders' Cup unless you're talking about the winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile or horses coming out of that Breeders' Cup Juvenile. The road to the Breeders' Cup, however, does provide significantly more crossover, considering that you have 4 Kentucky Derby points races, at least here in the U.S. There are others contested over in Europe before we get to the Breeders' Cup, and those are significant stepping stones to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. You have the Iroquois today, which is the first points race for the 2024 Kentucky Derby. You have the Champagne at Aqueduct, the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, and the American Pharoah at Santa Anita, all still to come on October 7th. And yes, they all will feature some of the top 2-year-olds in training here in 2023, but all of those 2-year-olds will eventually have an eye on trying to make it to Churchill Downs on the first Saturday in May. But in the shorter term, they're focused on trying to get to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And if you're hoping to find out what it actually feels like to make your way from a box seat at Churchill Downs to the winner's circle to stand next to a horse that you own while he's draped in a garland of roses, you probably aren't going to be all that disappointed if your horse isn't among the 9 juveniles entered in today's renewal of the Iroquois. Conventional wisdom would have you think that winning that race today, or at least competing in that race today, on the same track where the Kentucky Derby is going to be contested in, by the way, 232 days, 9 hours, 23 minutes, and just 44 seconds, you would think that that's a surefire formula for success on the first Saturday in May. Well, I'm going to tell you this morning, that just ain't the case. 29 horses have run in the Iroquois and returned to compete in the Kentucky Derby the following year. They are 0 for 29 with 1 second and 1/3. That's it. Looking at Lee was second in the Iroquois and finished second in the 2017 Kentucky Derby. At the Threshold was third in the Iroquois and finished third in the 1984 Kentucky Derby. Of course, At the Threshold, if you recall, got his Derby revenge as a sire in 1992 when his son Little E.T. upset the Run for the Roses at 16-1. So I wouldn't lose sleep over not competing in today's Iroquois if you're involved with a promising 2-year-old. The same holds true for today's Summer Stakes at Woodbine, a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, albeit a much smaller sample size than what we see with the Iroquois, but runners who compete in the Summer Stakes are 0 for 3 in their quest to win the Kentucky Derby. So if you're not in one of those two races today, don't sweat it. I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about the big day at Woodbine and the Iroquois on this morning's show. You're going to hear from journeyman jockey Jesus Castanon. He's going to be with me at 9 o'clock Eastern to share his thoughts on Iroquois contender Patriot Spirit, who was an impressive winner first out at Colonial on August 25th. The waters get much deeper for him today, but I'll get a chance to talk to Jesus about his Iroquois contender. Woodbine handicapper Jeff Bratt is going to go down the road to the Breeders' Cup with a preview of today's 4 greatest stakes. He'll do that with me at 9:20. And by the way, if you're thinking about winning the Kentucky Oaks on the first Friday in May, today's Pocahontas is actually a great place to be, in stark contrast to what we see with the Iroquois. All you have to do is ask the connections of Serengeti Empress and Untappable, both Kentucky Derby winners who ran in the Pocahontas during their 2-year-old campaigns. And one other greatest stake I want to be sure that we don't overlook this morning is the Grade 3 Baltimore-Washington International Turf Cup. That's taking place at Laurel this afternoon. If you flip back through the winners of this race, you're going to find names such as Kelso, Sir Ivor, Dahlia, all along, Fort Marcy, Van Landingham, Sunshine Forever, Paradise Creek, English Channel, and so on. Today's field, it doesn't stack up with those iconic names. But the race has so much history that I want to make sure we spend some time talking about it for all of you here this morning. And I'm going to do that in just a few minutes after our first commercial break when I welcome trainer Lindsay Schultz to the program. She'll send out Highest Distinction, the son of Point of Entry, who is 3-1 on the morning line in that Baltimore-Washington International Turf Cup. So here's the full lineup for you. Lindsay kicks it off for you at 8:15 Eastern. 8:35, a special edition of Unsung Heroes presented by Woodbine. I'm going to welcome Harrison Young Jr., who is the director of racing surfaces at Colonial Downs. If you missed his tweet, and I didn't see any press releases about it, and there are a couple of schools of thought on that I'll discuss with Harrison, but Colonial Downs just completed a 100% safe racing meet. And in our current environment that we're working within here in racing, the current culture, I think that's something that needs to be talked about, that needs to be mentioned. Other people will take the opposite approach, and they'll say, hey, wait a minute. Like Steelers coach Mike Tomlin, the standard is the standard. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to have safe meets. But this was a 100% safe meet, according to the tweet sent out by Harrison Young Jr., the director of racing surfaces at Colonial. And you're going to hear from him coming up right around 8:30, 8:35 Eastern Time, right in that ballpark. We'll get a chance to hear from Harrison on this week's edition of Unsung Heroes. 9 o'clock Eastern, I told you it's Jesus Castanon, 9:20, going down the road to the Breeders' Cup with Woodbine handicapper Jeff Bratt. And 9:40, Kurt Becker takes you inside the first week of the Keeneland September Yearling Sale. Kurt, of course, the Keeneland announcer during the race meet. He is also on the podium for all of their sales. So he'll join me at 9:40. 10 o'clock, Scott Shapiro joins me for the TwinSpires Triple Play. 3 races you can bet at TwinSpires later this afternoon. 10:20, Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History. And at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Roman's turf rider Tim Wilkin. So as you can tell, a really busy morning. We're going to cover a lot of ground. We're going to talk about all the big greatest stakes races coming up later today. We'll look back on the Keeneland sale. A lot of things to get to for you here this morning. When I come back, Lindsay Schultz will join me, and I'll provide you with this week's poll question. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's Voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Churchill Downs 14-day September meet runs now through October 1st. The September meet starts the kickoff to the Road to the Kentucky Derby with a $300,000 Grade 3 Iroquois on September 16th. The meet will also showcase many horses preparing for the Breeders' Cup and the Grade 3 $400,000 Ack, a win and you're in for the Dirt Mile division. With more than $3.7 million offered on the stakes schedule and purses powered by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund, you are not going to want to miss the September meet at Churchill Downs. For more information, visit churchilldowns.com.
I'm visiting with Joe Brown Nicholson of Nicholson Insurance Agency. Joe, how are things in the insurance world?
Things are just fine in the insurance business, Mike. I'm grateful for the people who place their trust in Nicholson Insurance Agency to protect their homes, autos, farms, and horses against financial loss. As you know, we represent many insurance companies, so we can choose just the right company for each client at the right price. We welcome each opportunity to provide quality service to our clients.
So having many companies seems important.
Absolutely. Just like in thoroughbred racing and breeding, competition also works for the betterment of the insurance industry. I am constantly impressed with the ways companies respond to consumer demands with new insurance products and services.
Thanks, Joe. For your equine and general insurance needs, call Nicholson Insurance Agency at 859-224-7080 or visit us on Facebook. You gotta know Joe.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Wheeling Springs is coming up alongside, and Wheeling Springs is now challenging for the lead. Zozos is back to third. Wayburn can find no more, is at the back and trying to run on his Steel Sunshine. The complexion changes completely. It's Trademark and Wheeling Springs duking it out. Zozos is trying to come back towards the inside, but Wheeling Springs is up by 3/4 of a length. Inside the final 16th, Wheeling Springs trying to put away a stubborn Trademark. Wheeling Springs wins it for Jose Ferrer and Lindsay Schultz. It's Wheeling Springs who gets the victory in the Islin over Trademark. That came Steel Sunshine in 1 minute 44.35 seconds.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on this Saturday morning. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch. Happy to have you along for the ride right up until 11 a.m. Eastern. I promised you a poll question here this morning, and before I get to our special guest, Lindsay Schultz, who, by the way, the trainer of Wheeling Springs, who you just heard winning the Philip H. Islin, Chris Griffin had the call. Before I get to Lindsay, I do want to make sure we throw this out there. So here you go. There are 3 Breeders' Cup Challenge races taking place at Woodbine later this afternoon. So which of those 3 challenge races is most likely to produce a Breeders' Cup winner when we get to Santa Anita in November? Is it the Natalma? Is it the Summer Stakes? Or the Woodbine Mile? Let me know your thoughts. You can go to @HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook to cast your vote. If you don't do social media, you know what to do. Email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, and let me know. I'll try to pass along the results of that poll question if I get time later in the show, but keep those votes coming. I know for Lindsay, she's hoping that it isn't any of those races that produces a Breeders' Cup winner. She's hoping a Breeders' Cup winner is going to come from the Grade 3 Baltimore-Washington International Turf Cup at Laurel later today, where she gets ready to send out her major player. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Lindsay, good morning.
Morning, Mike.
What a day for you, but I want to start by looking back on the Islin. That was the first greatest stakes victory of your career, which your career hasn't been going on all that long. At the end of 2021, you made the call to go out on your own, and here you are already saddling a greatest stakes winner. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's been amazing, and we've certainly had a lot of help and support along the way. But to do this so quickly is just wonderful.
Put me at Monmouth Park with you watching the Island? Take me through the race.
Well, Jose kind of has a way he rides Wayland Springs. So kind of going through the race, he broke and he didn't go for the lead. He just kind of kept him on the outside, going along at a good pace, and kept him in the clear. And it's kind of been the same way he's ridden him the last few times. The horse was involved in the race the whole time. You could tell he had horse, coming along the backside. He was just going along easy, really. And we had Zozos on the rail, and the rail's been, in the beginning of the meet, it was slow. It's definitely very slow here. And it's kind of gotten, I think, probably more fair as the meet's gone on, but still Zozos is on the rail, so I did have a thought, well, maybe that'll tire him out a little bit. And look, like our horse he kind of made the same move he made in the Monmouth Cup, but he didn't have Proxy there, getting ahead of him. So he was able to kind of keep that momentum going, and, Trademark came to him, and Trademark's a pretty nice horse, so I wasn't sure how that would go, but he just, he kept on digging, and it was pretty remarkable. The horse has got a lot of heart. He wants to win. For you, getting the first Greatest Stakes win of your career, it's always special. Any win is special, but when you break through in a Greatest Stakes like this, it goes to another level. If I was sitting right next to you or standing next to you, I don't know where you watched the race, but if I was next to you at Monmouth that day, would I have gotten struck by your program? Would I have gotten elbowed as you were cheering him on down the stretch? What was your reaction like? I was pretty calm, actually. I had some confidence in him, and to be fair, there was people around me that were jumping up and down and, really rooting him on, so I appreciated that. When you have Jose Ferrer riding a horse at Monmouth, it's like everyone in the stands is rooting for you. But yeah, I was pretty calm. I was very excited when we won, but I had some confidence in him that day. How'd you celebrate afterwards? I think I had a horse to saddle in the next race, and it doesn't stop. No, it doesn't stop. And I think we had a runner. Yeah, we did. We had a runner the next day too. So it wasn't. I think it was ordered some nice takeaway steak or something. That's such a typical trainer answer when I ask that question. I almost can predict it now, because you do have to be at the barn the next morning, right? It's not like you can win a game on a Sunday and you don't have to come back again until maybe the following Thursday or the following Sunday to play another football game, right? You're right back at it, and as you said, the very next race you're right back to work. Yeah. It's nonstop, but it's our life, it's what we're used to, so it's pretty fulfilling. You heard my poll question a short time ago, Lindsay. Do you think Wayland Springs can be a player now in this older horse division looking ahead to races like the Breeders' Cup? I think there's some really nice older horses, but this horse is certainly trying to make his mark. I think, we'll take it one step at a time, and we might try to, we might try a grade 2 in the fall, whether it's around here or Kentucky, but I think we'll let him keep proving it to us. But certainly he seems to be running quite well, and he's running against Proxy, who for sure is a Breeders' Cup horse. So we have hopes. And he's an Arkansas bred, which is really cool. Yeah, it's really, really neat and really exciting for Mr. Anthony and Shortleaf Stable and his sons and racing manager. And look, I'd love to win a stake at Oaklawn for them. So
talking with trainer Lindsay Schultz here on the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires, looking back on that win in the Island. And now let's turn our attention to what we're going to see this afternoon with the Grade 3 Baltimore-Washington International Turf Cup. One of two horses that you'll have entered in stakes races today is Highest Distinction, who is running in that Baltimore-Washington International Turf Cup, 3-1 on the morning line. And I said this earlier in the show as I was opening the program, Lindsay. When you look at the winners of this race historically, Kelso, Sir Ivor, Dahlia, all along, Sunshine Forever, Paradise Creek, English Channel, there are some massive names that have won this race over the years. Now maybe Highest Distinction?
I mean, the horse is doing phenomenal. And, should put a ringer in there. I'm not sure how we stack up against Smoke and Tea, but there's quite a few really nice horses in there. So definitely be the toughest field he's faced so far, but the horse is doing really well, so we're excited.
Comes into the race on a 2-race win streak, and his last win was in the Oceanport at Monmouth. Was this the goal moving forward if he had run well in the Oceanport?
I had it in my head. We didn't talk about it before because look, the Oceanport was a big step for us. The horse never thought to be a stake horse, but he's just been training so well, and that the win at Delaware gave him some confidence, and he was probably well liked as a 3-year-old, but just whether he lost his confidence or whatever it was, it was never a thought in our head, but I thought it made a lot of sense just to give him a try at a graded stake.
Lindsay, you learned from some of the best in the game with John Sheriff. You worked with Tom Proctor a little bit, Nick Zito, and Shug McGahee, who you just mentioned. When you see him enter a horse like Smoke and Tea, do you send him a text and just say, come on, man, you're killing me here?
No. He'll probably win.
Well, it's a great measuring stick, though, for your horse, isn't it? When you enter Highest Distinction, you say, okay, let's see if we really belong at this level.
Absolutely. No, I think it's good to run against these type of horses, and we'll see if he does belong.
What's the key for him being able to pull off, let's call it a very mild upset in this race? Because let's face it, he's 3-1. He's a contender. But what's the key?
Look, he just has to get into a good rhythm, forwardly placed, not on the front, but close enough to the front, just get in a good rhythm, because he has plenty of speed that he can carry. So if he can kind of get into that good cruising speed and not get stopped for a run, he should work out well.
Lindsay Schultz with me here on Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires. The other horse, Lindsay, you're going to run is in the All Along Stakes, and that is Creative Cairo. Tell me a little bit more about Creative Cairo.
The mare that's owned by Burton Jones, Airdrie stud, and I have a relationship with them from when I worked for Tom Proctor. So they've kind of, since I went out on my own, they've really tried to send me a horse, and they had this filly. They'd given her some time off over the winter, and I didn't really know what she could be. So Christoph always liked her all along, but she just didn't always put it together in her races. So we got her in the spring at Keeneland. She's a big mare, probably close to 1,200 pounds. And just, she did take a while to get fit, but we didn't want to push her too hard. So she finally got ready to run, and we got her a spot at Monmouth, and she very nicely in a 2X off the long layoff, and she's running at the end, and the fillies that were ahead of her kind of backed up the form. So look, she should certainly appreciate the mile and an eighth as well. So I'm excited to give her this shot.
Well, and you should be, because you don't know what you have until you take these shots, and maybe she delivers a big victory in here. She's 12-1 on the morning line. We'll see. Lindsay, just a couple of minutes left before I have to get to our next Legends of the Turf segment, but I look at your resume, and I went through some of the names of the people that you were able to learn from. Then you went to the Darley Flying Start program. You and I caught up on our Trainer Talk show last year, I guess it was, and had a chance to visit for a while. 23 wins from 93 starts this year. That's fantastic. You have 37 wins overall, 23 coming here this year. What's been the key to your fast start?
I think initially I had quite a few claiming horses, with the support of Marshall Graham and 10 Strike Racing, and I think that just allowed me to kind of get some action and, get some horses, get some wins, and get my name out there. So I was able to have quite a few runners, starting off, and I think because I was, able to show that I could do the job. Now I've been offered some more opportunities, and look, a lot of people that have sent me horses are people that I know because of Tom Proctor, for other people I've worked with, and I think it's just we've been given the opportunities, and we're just trying to do our best and work as hard as we can and make the most of it.
Yeah, I told you before we started the interview, hard work pays off, and that's exactly what we're seeing here with Lindsay Schultz and making the most of those opportunities. Good luck today, Lindsay. Let's go get a couple of stakes victories under your belt, a couple more, I should say, and all the best moving forward. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate it.
You got it. Trainer Lindsay Schultz here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Time now for your Legends of the Turf segment. Then when I come back, a special edition of Unsung Heroes as I welcome Harrison Young Jr., the Director of Racing Services at Colonial Downs. That's all ahead after your Legends of the Turf.
Racing for his breeder, Mrs. Phipps Wheatley Stable, this horse won the Juvenile, Youthful, and the Futurity as a 2-year-old. At 3, he was Horse of the Year after chalking up scores in the Flamingo, Wood Memorial, Preakness, Bahamas, Trenton, Queens County, Vosburg, and Benjamin Franklin handicaps. He equaled the track record in the Bahamas in going the 7-panel distance in 1:22 flat. He set a new track record in winning the Vosburg 7 furlongs in 1:21 4, a new track record for 9 furlongs in copying the Flamingo in 1:47 flat, and went the same distance in nailing down the Wood in 1:48 4. As a 3-year-old, are you listening out there, horseman? He was asked to shoulder 136 pounds in winning the Ben Franklin. He packed 130 in the Vosburg, the highest weight ever shouldered by a 3-year-old in that event. At the age of 4, he won the Toboggan under 133 pounds, the Carter under 135, the Stymie packing 133, and the Suburban and the Monmouth toting 134 pounds. When he hung up his running shoes, as it were, he had started 33 times and had won 23 with 4 seconds and 2/3. He became the leading sire with only 2 crops of racing age in 1963, and his stud services very quickly rose to the level of almost being beyond affordability. His reign as leading North American sire for 7 consecutive seasons was not only heretofore unmatched, but not even remotely approached at that time in the 20th century. Bull Lee and Lexington had stood alone in their time, but this horse literally dwarfed all his competitors in the breeding shed in terms of success of progeny on the racetrack. There was a question raised from time to time regarding his ability to impart stamina to his get. Although he had won in the 1 3/16 mile Preakness and the 1 1/4 mile Trenton, Suburban, and Monmouth handicaps, the vast majority of his get exhibited blazing speed on the racetrack. There were a number of his get, however, that could be classified as stayers, including among those would be Lamb Chop, Batur, Bull Bitter, Stahanas, Bull Dower, Dewan, Successor, and Gamely, just to name a few. They were all winners in stakes company at 1 1/4 miles or better. He was a leading sire of 2-year-olds for 5 seasons, 3 of those consecutively. The uninterrupted 8-year reign at stud for this horse, and 12 years in all, including that of his sire Nasrella, is a record to this day for a father-son combination. His progeny often did not have extended racing careers. They were too valuable at stud. Just hearken to this list in addition to those already mentioned, and really time precludes doing two justice to this prodigious and lengthy compilation. Bull Commander, Bull Princess, Speedwell, Bull Queen, Beautiful Day, Chieftain, Bull Lad, Time for Bed, Cornish Prince, Bold Experience, Jacinto, Staunchness, Jove, Bold Nesian, Queen Empress, Great Power, My Boss Lady, Disciplinarian, Master Bull, What a Pleasure, Big Advance, Virginia Delegate, Irish Castle, Raja Baba, Plum Bold, and on and on. In a word, absolutely awesome. This particular Titan of the Turf was foaled at Claiborne April 6, 1954, and that was a most noteworthy indeed day for that farm and racing as a whole. You see, 1/2 hour after this foal was dropped, another foal was brought into the racing world who in time on the racetrack became the world's leading money winner, Round Table. The marvelous thoroughbred that has been the subject of this dissertation went his way to the Great Paddock in the Sky, July 12, 1971, and with him went a remarkable record on the racetrack and in the breeding shed. He was Bold Ruler.
You're listening to HRRN, Horse Racing's Voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's Woodbine Turf Champions Day on September 16th as the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series takes center stage, featuring 3 Grade 1 events. With the $1 million Rico Woodbine Mile, the $500,000 Johnny Walker Natalma Stakes, and the $500,000 Bet365 Summer Stakes, all on the famed E.P. Taylor Turf Course. Woodbine Racetrack, where the best of the best compete for the ultimate challenge. Win and you're in. Wager Woodbine today.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in Heart of Bluegrass Country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
Get ready for the ultimate autumn excitement at Pimlico's Fall Meet from September 8th to the 24th. Indulge in the irresistible flavors of bourbon and barbecue right at the track, creating an unforgettable experience for your taste buds. Mark your calendar for 2 thrilling stakes weekends, where a staggering $925,000 in total purses are up for grabs. Join us at Pimlico's Fall Meet for heart-pounding races, mouth-watering delights, and a chance to win big. Learn more at Pimlico.com. That's Pimlico.com. See you there.
Heroes in the world of sports are not uncommon, oftentimes thrusting themselves into the limelight through unimaginable feats.
Back behind the ball, Woods puts it.
And in! He has done it! Tiger is back! Tiger is back on top! Tiger Woods, the 2019 Masters champion.
And breathtaking performances.
Here's how you count to 8. 3, 2, 1. And for the 8th time, college basketball's national championship trophy is coming home to Kentucky.
But behind every great hero, there are others. Individuals who play a crucial role in the achievements of those we read about in the headlines. The ultimate team players. Content to stand behind the curtain, embracing their place as a vital part of a sport's success. In horse racing, these are the unsung heroes.
And every other week, Woodbine kind enough to present this segment for you here on the Equine Forum. And it's always special to visit with people in our sport that do incredible work behind the scenes, and you probably never hear their names. Certainly, you never see them in the headlines. And that is the case with today's unsung hero. Harrison Young Jr. is the director of racing surfaces at Colonial Downs. He is a certified turf professional, and Earlier this week, Harrison sent out a message on Twitter, and he said, "I'm speechless. Some doubted, some believed. The little track Colonial Downs pulled off a historical accomplishment with a 100% safe meet for our equine and human athletes. And because of that, I welcome Harrison Young Jr. as this week's Unsung Hero." Harrison, congratulations on that incredible accomplishment.
Thank you. It's definitely a team effort to accomplish something like this, and I think a little bit of luck, but a lot of horsemanship from all the players in the game that allows a meet to be successful like this, and just having a blessed facility, to allow us to just be able to perform.
This is very positive news for the industry. It's positive news for Colonial Downs, and it should be shouted from the rooftops. And I did a Google search before we started this conversation this morning, and I couldn't find any information, any press release, any national news network that had picked up on your tweet and your story of this 100% safe meet. But my goodness, if for some reason something happens, and we've seen it at other venues, if something happens, that would be national news. Why haven't we seen this anywhere?
I think mainly because it's the expectation. We all have a job to do, and the goal is, whether you're a trainer, whether you're a blacksmith or a groom, is to do your job, right? And our job here at Colonial is to provide a safe, enjoyable backside training and racing surfaces, and front side for all the horse players and fans. And being able to do that, I don't think is something to necessarily praise about. I think it's just something that it's part of doing the job. And so I guess that's why I'm speechless, as humbled by it. Is we go through the racing year, and every track has things that happen, right? And some are out of our hands, and some maybe we could have controlled. But I think we were just very blessed this year with Colonial, with all the hard work that was put into the surfaces. And then also it goes back to all the hard work that the horsemen and the veterinarians and everybody like that put in prior to coming to Colonial to prepare for Colonial, which helped allow us to have a safe meet.
And, it's interesting you take it that direction, and I kind of expected that you might. Like the Steelers head coach, Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin, is always preaching the standard is the standard, right? And the standard for our game should be safe racing. We know that 100% safe racing is kind of a pie in the sky type of thing that, unless you're talking about a situation like this, usually isn't attainable, but it's the goal that everybody's striving for. That should be the standard. And I get why you say that, listen, this isn't really news. This is just us doing our job. But in light of the environment that we're all in right now in this industry, with the situation at Churchill Downs, the situation that we saw at Naira this year, and the negative publicity that was put out there, I do think that this needs to be talked about, and this needs to be promoted, because whatever you're doing something right, and this may serve as a model for other racetracks going forward.
Well, I think it's always been the baseline model and the achievement, right? But, I can't take Colonial Downs and put it 30 minutes east or west of its location and be able to maintain it the same as we are in that area in New Kent County, right? I can't go to another track and do the same thing that I do at Colonial. So that's the hard part of the game. Is every single racetrack is different, whether it's dirt, turf, synthetic. It has its own problems, right? Whether dealing with weather conditions, dealing with the proper equipment, or whatever it may be, or staffing. But that's really the big challenge. And I think the standard operating procedures that we're trying to create as an industry for these racetracks, I think, is a good thing. But not every track can obey by the same way of operations, of maintaining, because it's just every surface is a living thing, and you have to maintain it differently. So I think as long as we all strive, and that's from the upper portion of the corporations all the way down to the person, cold hosing horses off after a race, right? If we all do our part and we all put the emphasis into, in my opinion, our number one clients, which are the horsemen and the people on the backside, and our number two clients are the horse players, right? And I know the horse players pay the game for it to go along, but the horsemen are really the ones that are out there every single day, making it their life, making it their living, and putting their best interest into these horses to allow them to perform, because they are equine athletes. And, you look at a situation like Aaron Rodgers most recently, right? How many turf fields are there, synthetic turf fields are there in the entire NFL? Well, it just happened that one day in that fourth play, he had a career-ending injury, right? Headline news. It's sad, but it also grows awareness that, hey, NFL, should we stay with synthetic because you can have your conscience on it, you can have more wear and tear on it, or do you want to go back to natural grass because it's much more realistic?
There's certainly more that goes into equine and human safety in our game than just the racing surface, and you've done a great job, Harrison, pointing that out. It takes a team effort from the horsemen who prep their horses leading into a meet, from everybody that's involved with working with those horses, and then, of course, there is the situation with the racing surface itself. Why do you think, can you put your finger on a couple of things with that racing surface at Colonial Downs that led to it being such a safe surface this meet?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think one, it goes back to the original designers and construction of the facility, with people like John Pissarro, Joe King. Then you have track consultants and superintendents like Kenneth Brown, who actually just took a full-time job as the new Maryland Jockey Club track superintendent. He's going back there to get Maryland back under control, and he's a genius at it. And I think especially for the dirt track, him rebuilding our dirt track and making it what it is probably one of the most underrated and underused surfaces that we have. And that always frustrates me when we don't run a lot of races on it, because it's such a good surface. I mean, to have horses sound during training, sound during racing for a whole summer meet, and you're putting the track away and you open it back up, that's pretty impressive. But as far as the turf grass goes, I think it's a very playable surface that is configured and manipulated to a way where every horse has an opportunity to have the same trip, whether they're on the rail, off the rail, inner turf, outer turf, running 5 furlongs or running a mile and a half, or over jumps, and that's a totally different sport that we have there on the same surface. But I think the subsurface is really where we have it today for that racetrack, and the demand and the wear and tear that we put on it for the use for that entire meet. I mean, I think I did the calculation. We had some 300 races out there on the turf surfaces, averaging about 9 to 10 horse fields for 9 weeks in a row. That's a lot of racing on turf. And, in a short span of time. And all it takes is one decision of, do we make a decision to come off the turf and not race anything with weather? Do we cancel today? Do we move these races off? And working with the racing secretary too helps, because with the track surfaces, because then you're able to understand what the track is doing and where you can put the placement of these races, not necessarily looking for that day, but looking for the longevity of the meet. So I'm always working we're always working together as a team to understand what races we have, placements, so we're not abusing certain areas. And I think, just having a wide turf course that can cater to all distances of racing, all caliber of racing, as you guys saw this summer with Arlie's a Million, and all the way down to, running $8,000 claiming races.
talking with this week's Unsung Hero, Harrison Young Jr., the Director of Racing Surfaces at Colonial Downs, coming off a 100% safe racing meet. And again, Harrison, very quick to give credit to all of the horsemen and all the people involved with the horses, not just him, but him and his entire team. It takes a village, and that is exactly the case with achieving that remarkable goal that Colonial was able to achieve this year. Harrison, you mentioned the number of horses that raced over the turf course at Colonial Downs, and it does sound like a big number to me, especially when you're talking about the consistent full fields that Colonial Downs was able to attract. I'm always curious when you see a meet, whether it's Churchill or Gulfstream or Naira, wherever it's taking place, Santa Anita, you see all these horses racing on grass, and it's an extended meet. I'm always curious about the things that the racing surfaces people have to do in order to maintain that turf course so it doesn't get run down during the meet with these huge animals going over it time and time again. So what are a couple of the things that you have to keep in mind when you're working with a turf surface like that?
I think number one is your moisture content and your compaction, right? So for Colonial, the number one thing that I pay attention to out there is the moisture. So if I know that if I use my device and I'm reading the moisture sub 3 to 3 inches down below that turf surface, and what I consider my sponge layer, so it's basically about 3.5 inch layer where all the roots are below that. So it's where all the rhizomes and stolons of the Bermuda grass are, and we have built that up to with a bunch of top dressing mix that has made this tight sponge. So by manipulating the moisture content in there, there's no kickback, right? So the horses are able to get in, get their toe in, and every stride they're able to accelerate, not decelerate because the ground underneath them has slipped away. So being able to keep that consistent through the entire meet really allows us to be able to run on the same surface multiple times. Now, I think there's actually 2 lane settings that I utilized this year after Arlington Million where we ran on it for 3 weeks. I've never done that before. And with all those races that we have, which would have been probably 30, probably close to like 80-something races that we had, well, actually more than that, because if you think about it, we run about probably 80 races a week. So we did that for 3 weeks on the same areas, and it held up, which is great. And then, also understanding your course. So going out there, right after the first race and getting a feel for knowing that your moisture content's where it is, knowing what the horse's response to the turf is by communicating to the veterinarians. I mean, and being transparent in that aspect. I think it's when there's transparency in the game where you can understand the horse's response to your surface by talking to the private practice vets who put in super long hours and are often underappreciated as well for all the work and knowledge that they bring to the game, but then also to your state vets, right? And understanding how horses are coming back after a race, whether it's that day or whether it's 2 days later. And paying attention to that lets you know, okay, hey, I might be getting tendons or I might be getting something else. Where is that happening? Rewatching the race replays to understand and watching those horses to understand. And then also being a part of what's the history of that horse, right? How many times has it ran? Where's it coming from? Was it just claimed? Like looking at the big picture. But for the racetrack itself, I think looking at all of those things and just being a sponge like the surface, absorbing all this information just helps, at least for myself, it helps me understand my job a lot better because I'm working for the horsemen, I'm doing it for the horsemen, and I'm doing it for the equine athletes and for the human athletes that are on their backs, right? So by communicating to all the people involved, and whether it's correct, positive feedback or criticisms, you got to have thick skin, obviously, in the game, but it really helps you understand to know your surface and what it's actually doing, not just maintaining it the same way every single day. You have to be able to mix it up and take risks. But for me, I'm grateful that trainers, owners, horsemen, vets, all those people are so transparent and been kind enough to be able to share information to help me back what we're actually doing out there. And if I know that the divots are looking a certain way, I know I either need to ease back on the water or I need to start divot mix, putting divot mix into the divot walk and things like that to repair the surface in areas. But once you become one with the surface and you truly understand it, then you can start really doing some cool things with it. But you also have to understand that, for example, I used to do a training center, and I'd spend all week and I'd finally get the track right. Well, we might get rain, and then I'm spending another week and a half trying to get the track right again because it's changed.
Yeah.
So just when you think that you got it understood, Mother Nature could throw a curveball, or a freak accident could throw you a curveball, and you're sitting there questioning it, right? Did I do this right? Did I do that right? Did I do enough? I think at the end of the day, we all have to say, I've done it. I've done what I could with what I have, and I'm comfortable with it. And you play the game. You let the horses show you that you're either on top of it or something's not right.
Is
when something's not right,
is the mindset, Harrison, the same when working with a dirt surface, or is your approach completely different?
Well, funny enough, I maintain the turf course almost like a dirt track. Meaning, so I drag the turf course, right, to make sure that there's no shoes. It's how I get familiar with the turf, because there's divots, but they're not divots. So when the grass gets cut in the Bermuda, it dies basically. And actually each hoof print is actually reproducing the plant for me for it to rebound, because there's no grass seeds. So as a horse penetrates, gets her toes down into that rise zone and stolen area, it's cutting the rise zones and stolons, which then is reproducing the plant. So the horses are actually doing me a favor while we're doing them a favor at the same time. So, and there's other things that I do out there. I can't give away all my secrets, but there's other things I do out there that is similar to what people would do on a dirt track, and mainly that's the moisture content. Because a dirt track, if you can be consistent, consistency is the key for anything. Whether it's a horse in training, whether it's a dirt track or a turf surface or a tapeta, it's consistency. And that's all we're looking for, right? That's all the horsemen are looking for. They want to know that when they go from one track to the next track to the next track, or when they go out to train every day, that the track is going to stay consistent so that they can have their training consistent or their running styles consistent, if that makes sense.
Well, Harrison, I'm going to tell you this. If you keep coming up with these meets with 100% perfect safety records, all your secrets are going to have to be out there, because I think the folks at HISA, I think the folks with the National HBPA, all the racing organizations are going to be coming to you and to the team and saying, hey, let's talk about this. Maybe you're on to something here. And I think that would be a wonderful thing. So I really do appreciate what you have done and the team has done at Colonial Downs. Congratulations on a tremendous meet. And Harrison, congratulations on being this week's Unsung Hero. Well deserved.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk horses, and I really appreciate you reaching out to me. And I'm going to get back here to the back ring at Keeneland with my brother and see if we can't scope out the next Kentucky Derby winner in the future.
Yeah, good luck, my friend. Say hello to your brother for me.
I will. Thank you so much. And again, I'm humbled by this, and I just look forward to continuing to share knowledge and be a part of the game for the best interests of the industry.
Continued success, my friend.
Yes, sir.
All right, Harrison Young Jr., this week's Unsung Hero. By the way, his brother he's talking about, trainer Jonathan Thomas. So they are scouring the Keeneland sales, looking for the next superstar. We'll see if they can find it. Let's hope they do. When I come back, I'll tell you more about what's ahead here on the program. But first, this 30-second break for a word from Woodbine.
It's Woodbine Turf Champions Day on September 16th as the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series takes center stage, featuring 3 Grade 1 events. With the $1 million Rico Woodbine Mile, the $500,000 Johnny Walker Natalma Stakes, and the $500,000 Bet365 Summer Stakes, all on the famed E.P. Taylor Turf Course. Woodbine Racetrack, where the best of the best compete for the ultimate challenge. Win and you're in. Wager Woodbine today.
If you know someone you feel deserves to be recognized as an unsung hero in these segments going forward, email their story to me, mike@horseracingradio.net, and I will do my best to work that in the weeks ahead. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
With every race, every stride and sprint, winning is everything, especially when you've dedicated everything you have to get there. But winning a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series race is just the beginning of something bigger. An invitation to one of the most anticipated events in horse racing, the Breeders' Cup World Championships. Winning a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series race turns a finish line into the start of your legacy, a starting gate into the world stage, one race into once in a lifetime. Winning earns you an automatic starting position in a Breeders' Cup race, entry fees paid by the Breeders' Cup, a nominator award of $10,000, and a travel award of up to $40,000. When it comes to cementing your legacy, winning a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series race is just the beginning. View the schedule of Challenge Series races happening around the world and learn more at breederscup.com/challenge.
Attention horsemen, the 2023 Claiming Crown is coming to the fairgrounds in New Orleans on Saturday, December 2nd. The 25th Claiming Crown features 8 races totaling $1 million in base purses, headlined by the $200,000 Claiming Crown Jewel at 1 1/8 miles. The deadline to make horses eligible for the Claiming Crown is November 18th, with entries to be taken November 25th. Eligibility request forms and more information is available at claimingcrown.com.
I'm 54, so basically, it's too late to start saving for retirement, right?
Not right. Starting to save, even in your 50s, can really make a difference.
Well, right now, saving seems hard to wrap my head around. Plus, with the way this year's been going...
Hey, listen, it's okay. You still got this. Just go to aceyourretirement.org. It's an online tool from AARP that can help you get your retirement savings on track no matter your age. It's free and only takes about 3 minutes.
I like 3 minutes.
Yeah, at aceyourretirement.org, you'll chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach. Just answer a few questions and you'll get a personalized plan and tips to help boost your retirement savings. Tips that are easy to understand and tailored to your lifestyle.
I like that too.
Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back. Just head to aceyourretirement.org and make your plan to start saving for retirement.
Thanks.
That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
HRRN is live online. Go to our website at horseracingradio.net to stream all of our broadcasts live or listen to the show archives anytime. Read our blogs, get the latest news, and see our entire broadcast schedule. It's all there at horseracingradio.net. And follow us on Twitter at HRRN and like our page on Facebook. Search Apple Podcasts for HRRN and download our latest shows. HRRN is home to racing's biggest events, and our home on the web is at horseracingradio.net. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
And they're into the stretch, and Shackelford on the outside, the leader. Astrology coming up the rail. Dance City, Animal Kingdom in the center of the track, and he's closing out at the 8th pole. Animal Kingdom has to get to Shackelford. It is Shackelford in front. Animal Kingdom on the outside is coming. On the inside, Astrology third. Shackelford, Animal Kingdom, here's the wire. Shackelford holds on to the Preakness. Animal Kingdom was second. Astrology was third. And Dance City, after that, was dialed in, who ended up finishing fourth. But it is a wire-to-wire win by Shackelford, who was just outside of Flashpoint. He takes the Preakness.
That's Larry Colmus with the call of the 2011 running of the Middle Jewel, the Triple Crown. Jesus Castanon was aboard Shackelford that day, a huge win in his career, and it has been a great career for Jesus. He's won more than 2,700 races, having a good year here in 2023 as well, and he's going to be aboard in the Iroquois later today. Jesus going to be getting the mount aboard Patriot Spirit for trainer Mike Campbell, a winner last time out at Colonial. And Jesus going to join me momentarily coming up at 9 o'clock Eastern. 9:20, Jeff Bratt takes you down the road to the Breeders' Cup to look at the big races at Woodbine. And at 9:40, Kurt Becker joins me to recap the first 4 days of the Keeneland September Yearling Sale, which have been really, really strong. So we'll talk to him about that coming up at 9:40. Hey, don't forget, if you're in town for the sales, check out Tony's of Lexington in downtown Lexington, Kentucky. You won't be disappointed. You tell them the Baron told you to come in, and they will treat you like gold, and you can enjoy a wonderful, wonderful meal at Tony's of Lexington. I'm back with Hour 2 right after I pause 10 seconds for Station ID. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of 3, kicking off for you here on this Saturday morning. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, bringing you this edition of the Equine Forum, all presented by TwinSpires. If you missed any portion of the first hour of the show, my conversation with trainer Lindsay Schultz, or that Unsung Heroes episode with Harrison Young Jr., the director of racing surfaces at Colonial Downs, all you have to do is head back to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can listen to the podcast whenever you get some time, and you can also do that on every podcast platform. So however you get your podcast, type in Horse Racing Radio Network and enjoy our shows all week long, all year long, whenever you have a little time. We really appreciate everybody tuning in coast to coast and worldwide. I threw a poll question out for you this morning, and the votes continue to come in. Keep them coming. Which of today's 3 Breeders' Cup Challenge races at Woodbine is most likely to produce a Breeders' Cup winner when we get to Santa Anita in November? The Natalma, the Summer, or the Woodbine Mile? And if you don't do social media, you can email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, with your thoughts, or you can go to @HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook to cast your vote. Well, you heard me at the end of Hour 1 praising and talking about the accolades and the career of Jockey Jesus Castanon. It's been a tremendous career. More than 2,700 wins under his belt, and he'll look to add to that later today in the Grade 3 Iroquois at Churchill Downs, when he'll be aboard Patriot Spirit for trainer Michael Campbell, a horse he rode in his first career race at Colonial Downs, a winning effort, and now here he is in a Grade 3 Iroquois. The water's deeper, but boy, did he look good in that debut. And Jesus is with me now. Jesus, good morning.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Yeah, doing great, buddy, and always great to hear your voice. And, I was thinking about this as we were texting back and forth about a time for you to come join me here on the program, and I was thinking about the time that you sat in as an analyst with us on the coverage, I believe was the Stephen Foster at Churchill Downs. You were recuperating from an injury, and you were kind enough to sit in with us. And, man, that was one of the highlights of my broadcasting career.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing time. I remember that time. It's hard to really forget those times,
Yeah, I still remember the picture we took up in the announcer's booth at Churchill, and I was a little upset. You had a nicer shirt on than me.
Yeah. It was, it was one of those days, I guess, was not expecting until, you sent me a text to told me to come and see you. So it was great. It was a great time, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, the always styling Jesus Castanon. And today he's looking to be styling in the winner's circle after the Iroquois. Let's talk about Patriot Spirit for a minute, because you were aboard him in that maiden-breaking win at Colonial. He was so impressive that day. Walk me through that race. What did you feel underneath you?
I'll tell you one thing. That horse, Mr. Mike Campbell has really done a good job with him. I really, honestly, going into that race, 178, I want to be honest, we didn't think that we was going to be able to, to get a 7-8, but, the horse, Mr. Campbell did a heck of a good job to get him to go to that race, and he really, really impressed the way he did it. He did it without me having to do anything on him, I felt like, he was, whenever he seen the horse in front of me, he was just ready to go head after him. And I'll tell you one thing, I couldn't be any happier to be on him. he made it. He just cruised around so easy.
Well, he answered that 7/8 of a mile question for you, no problem at first asking. Now he has to go an additional furlong. This is a 1 mile race, but it's a 1-turn mile at Churchill Downs. Any concerns about the extra furlong?
Not at all. Not at all. Like I said, before coming for the first race, it was a little question, but he was able to get it done, and I let him do his thing. He galloped out so good, and I think the mile race is not going to really be any concern about it. He's just going to go ahead and do his thing, and he's ready for it.
There are 9 horses entered in the Iroquois. You drew the outside post number 9. Advantage going a mile at Churchill Downs?
Well, the way his racing style is not really matter about the post position. It doesn't really matter to him. He does have a tactical speed where I'll be able to kind of sit wherever he wants to. There is not issue at all. Breaking from number 9.
Yeah, and I guess most jockeys would probably tell you, and I'm sure you'll say the same thing, that breaking from the outside, you get an opportunity to see what develops to your inside.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about anybody on the outside of you, so you can kind of see what happens and then make your adjustments from there, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the first thing that we get to see. I mean, when you got a horse like this, you get to see what's going on in the inside, and you just ride the race however it develops from there.
Are you one of those jockeys, Jesus, that has multiple plans in your head, and then once the gates open, you try to just adjust from there?
No, I don't. I just kind of I just once we come out of the gate, just ride my race. I don't get to think too much about it. I go from there.
What's the ideal scenario for Patriot Spirit, assuming he breaks well, everybody else in the field breaks well? Walk me through the plan in your head, the ideal scenario for him.
Well, if something happens like that, I mean, I know he can be able to sit off a little bit of the speed, however they go. And, and honestly, this horse is a type of horse that no matter what happens, he's going to give you 100%. And being on the outside, being on the inside, however position he be, I know he's going to be ready for the race.
It's interesting. He's one of only 2 horses in the race to have competed at 7 furlongs on the main track. You have one other horse in the race who's gone a mile. No, I guess West Saratoga has also competed at 7/8 of a mile. And when you go and you look at the times, they're different. They're obviously, but some are at Saratoga, some are at Ellis Park,
sure.
and yours is at Colonial. Is it fair to compare race times at a specific distance from different tracks?
That's another question. I mean, we just have a different type of surface. I know that the surface up in Saratoga, the track is a little deeper, which that makes the difference sometimes. And the one from Ellis Park, same thing. So I'm just tomorrow is gonna be an exciting day, and I know he's ready. So no matter what kind of race, no matter kind of surface he's on to be racing, he's gonna give 100%. I know that. So it doesn't really concern me anything about the times, about how the run up in Saratoga or Ellis Park. But like I said, the surface of the track is different. So we just have to go. It's gonna be an exciting race. And to me, tomorrow we'll see what kind of horse he is.
Talking with veteran jockey Jesus Castanon here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Patriot Spirit, his mount in today's Iroquois. There have been so many unbelievable moments in his career. We look back on that win in the 2011 Preakness before we segued into the second hour of the program. Shackelford provided you, Jesus, with so many incredible memories. But he's just one. You've had some other really nice horses you've been aboard. If you were to look back on your career and stop and reflect upon some of the accomplishments, what horses are always going to stand out to you?
I was riding First Dude and Patio Prado. to me, and obviously Chuckle Forest was his number to me is the best horse in my life, and but I think Patio Prado was great. He was a good horse too.
And Patio Prado, pretty tremendous. I think he won the Palm Beach Stakes in 2010 aboard Patio Prado, and that was a really good race too. How about Latruska? Didn't you ride Latruska at one point?
Yes, I did. I ended up riding her up in Houston, but that was pretty excited to be able to ride the best filly on the country that year. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. We talked about this before you and I were starting the interview. We talked about this off air, but here you are, 50 years old. You continue to battle through some injuries, and now, thank God, you are 100% healthy and riding at a very high level again. Just talk about what it's like at this point in your career when you do get injured, the time you have to put into getting back. It's different than it was 20 years ago, right?
Yeah. I guess our body changed a lot. Once, it takes a little longer time for me to kind of heal back. And I remember when I was in my younger age, I used to, when I got hurt, I was able to come back quick. It just now it is tough. Even though I want to sometimes, I want to come back quick, but I can't. Sometimes I have to just kind of give time to my body, be able to be 100% heal and come back. But it's different feelings now. But thank God, I feel like I feel good 100%, and I'm just happy to be back home.
What is it that makes you want to keep coming back?
Well, it's tough for me to give up. It has been times in my career that I try to kind of sit back and just kind of give a little time of myself and not race for a little bit and see what I'm gonna be. But it's tough to be away from horses because I have been doing this for all my life. I have been doing this for so many years, and it's just hard to be away from horses. And seems like every time I get on a nice horse, and that's basically what keep me on the business.
It's funny because when I talked to Mike Smith, here's Mike at 58 years old, the Hall of Famer, and he's still winning big races. And he doesn't ride as much as he used to. He picks his spots now, and he's earned that right to do it. But he told me the last time we talked a few weeks ago, Jesus, that he said, "Listen, people ask when are you going to retire," and he said, "I am retired. I'm doing what I love, and I'm doing it on a smaller scale. I'm already retired, but I'm doing what I love."
Yes.
Do you feel the same way?
I do really. I can say the same thing, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, as long as you're still doing it, what you love, that's all that matters,
Can you see yourself still doing this at 58?
Honestly, I cannot really answer the question right now, but if I feel like I feel right now, yes. Yes, I can see myself still be up there, Like I told my wife before that I was going to retire when I be 40. Well, 10 years already passed, and I'm still doing it. So I'll be sitting here. I don't want to sit down here and tell you that I'm going to be out of business. I'm going to be retired when I be 55. When I'm, I know I can, if I be able to do it, I'm going to keep doing it until I cannot no longer do, I cannot do it anymore.
So many trainers, when I ask them that particular question, if they've been around the game a long time and they've had an incredible career, and I'll ask them those types of questions about how much longer they're going to continue to do it. And just like you, Jesus, whether you're a trainer, whether you're a jockey, whatever role you play in the game, it all comes back to the horses. And you just said that. You said it was hard when you stepped away a little bit and tried to take a little time to yourself to be away from the horses. There's just something about that draws you back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is tough. It really is. It's really tough because if you've been doing this for so long, it's because you love it, And no matter what you do, you're still gonna come back. I mean, yes, it's gonna be a time for me to go ahead and just call it, like basically be over riding, like stop off riding. But honestly, right now, I cannot really come up with a time. And, I cannot really tell you when I'm going to retire, because as long as I keep riding, I keep doing it, and I feel good, I'm going to be able, I'm going to keep going.
How much did that 2,700 win milestone mean to you?
It means a lot. Like, I want to get to the 3,000. And that definitely will be, I will be saying, you know what, I'm done. That's it. But the way it is right now, obviously I don't have as much business as I used to. It's going to take me a little long time. But, hey, if I make it, I make it. If I don't make it to 3,000, I'm going to be happy with what I did.
Yeah, and you certainly should be.
Yeah.
You should be proud of what you've accomplished so far. And you think back to that first win in 1989 at Agua Caliente. That was a special moment for you. Did you ever imagine at that point you'd be sitting here talking to me in 2023? Well, not talking to me necessarily, but sitting here talking about winning more than 2,700 races?
Not at all. Back then, when I didn't think anything about it. I didn't think anything about even riding the Kentucky Derby, to be honest. I didn't think anything about it. I was so excited just to win the race. My first race was so exciting that I from there on, I didn't think anything about it. And thank God that, thank God for what He gave me, and and got me all the way here. So I'm happy to be here talking to you right now.
How much has riding races changed since you first came into the game in 1989?
It has changed a lot now. I can say that when I was younger, I can see, back then I was able to see a different picture because I was younger, But now when I got to start riding for a lot of new, when I start riding for new people and all the stuff and everything has changed a lot, I'm like I said, I'm 50 years old, and I want to keep doing it until I can ride along. And now you have a new kids, a new generation, so they're moving. They basically keep coming in, and we are getting older, so we are basically want to move out. But the racing has changed a lot.
Can you, Jesus, use your experience and almost think your way to victory, where you kind of outsmart some of the younger riders just coming into the game on occasion? Maybe not every single race, but there are times when you can kind of outthink them a little bit because maybe they have superior skills now physically because they're younger. Does it work like that for a jockey?
Yes, it does help a lot. After you've been doing it for so long, you go through a lot of experience, and the experience that you go through, you get to learn from them. And knowing that they're just beginners, they just been riding for a little bit, basically sometimes that's the advantage of us. That's the advantage of us to be able to do sometimes, to do better, I would say.
Jesus, I got to tell you, this has been, this whole conversation kind of took a different path than really I had anticipated, but really interesting stuff, great insight, and listen, man, all the best every time you get a leg up. Safe trip for sure, and best of luck with Patriot Spirit and the Iroquois. Let's go get 2,703.
Thank you.
All right, that is Jockey Jesus Castanon here on the Horse Racing Radio Network, one of racing's true good guys and somebody who's had to battle through a lot, especially in recent years with some of the injuries, and here he is back on top of his game. Would be great to see him in the winner's circle of the Iroquois later today. When I come back, I'm going to take you down the road to the Breeders' Cup. I'll be joined by Jeff Bratt, the handicapper at Woodbine, to take a look at their incredible program today, which includes those 3 Breeders' Cup Challenge events. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
This is HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Our friends at Millridge Farm are known for raising quality runners off their farm. In fact, Just since 2000, Millridge has raised or sold 36 Grade 1 winners, nearly averaging 2 a year for the last 20 years. This year at the Keeneland September sale, they have a quality group of yearlings sprinkled throughout the sale. And believe me, it matters that you are able to buy a yearling that you know has been raised with the horse in mind and whose record of producing horses at the highest level speaks for itself. Position yourself to fulfill your dreams by considering yearlings this Keeneland September sale from Millridge. Hey everyone, it's the Baron with this week's North of the Border report presented by Woodbine Entertainment. My boy Prince, who turned plenty of heads with his runaway victory in Woodbine's Simcoe Stakes, will look to boost his status in today's Grade 1 Summer Stakes at Woodbine. A victory will earn the Ontario bred a fee-paid berth into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf at Santa Anita on November 3rd. Joel Rosario has the call on My Boy Prince and is also named on Go With Gusto, who finished first in her only start to date, only to have her number taken down. Both runners are trained by Woodbine's perennial leading trainer Mark Cassey, who has captured 4 previous runnings of the summer, the most recent with Gretzky the Great in 2020. The Grade 1 Natama offers the winner an expense-paid trip to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf, and trainer Charlie Appleby is once again the one to watch when he sends out British-bred Dazzling Star. Appleby has a remarkable record at Woodbine, with his last 7 starters all heading back to England with Grade 1 victories. Dazzling Star races for the powerhouse owner-breeder Godolphin, who have provided 5 of Appleby's Woodbine winners. The daughter of Blue Point and Dancing Sands has seen action 3 times, all in 6 furlong races, with the 2 most recent being straightaway turf runs. William Buick, who guided Modern Games to victory in last year's Grade 1 Woodbine Mile and Mysterious Night to success in the same day's Grade 1 Summer Stakes, will do the honors on the current pair of Appleby Invaders, which also includes Woodbine Mile favorite Master of the Seas. The 27th running of the Grade 1 Woodbine Mile carries a purse of $1 million and will be contested over the E.P. Taylor Turf Course as race 9 on today's 12-race card. A berth into the Breeders' Cup Mile is on the line. First post for today's program is 1:15 p.m. And that's your North of the Border report for this Saturday morning. For more updates and racing information, visit woodbine.com or follow along on both Twitter and Instagram at Woodbine TV.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Modern Games will have to find a way through on the rail. Ivor starts to wind up. Homer Screen dropped out and marched to the arch at the top of the stretch. And it's War Bomber who went to the front with Mighty Heart Town Cruise. And trying to run through is Wakanaka. And down the outside, here comes Modern Games, absolutely punishing them. Modern Games race past them in a blink. And Modern Games out in front, 2 lengths to Finest Sound, who's run to second. And this 3-year-old is a star in the Rico Woodbine Mile. Modern Games, and this time you can cash your ticket. Modern Games by 5 lengths. Ivor second, third Finest Sound, fourth Shell Spite, and then Town Cruise Mighty Heart, and the rest headed by Wakanaka, 132.77.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Mike Penna with you on this Saturday morning. That was Robert Geller with the call of the Grade 1 Rico Woodbine Mile last year, won by Modern Games, trained by Charlie Appleby, who is back again in this year's renewal, looking to make it 2 in a row when he sends out veteran Master of the Seas for Godolphin under jockey William Buick. We'll see if they can pull it off. That is race 9 on a 12-race program at Woodbine, which is loaded with unbelievable quality. Now, the Rico Woodbine Mile came up a bit short compared to what we're used to seeing, but when you look at the Grade 1 Natama, the Grade 1 Summer, that Grade 1 Woodbine Mile, and, of course, the Grade 3 Vigil, all 4 graded stakes, part of that 12-race program, it is loaded. There are 3 win-and-you're-in races, including the Woodbine Mile, which is a win-and-you're-in for the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile. And nobody knows that better than handicapper Jeff Bratt, who has been poring over the past performances for the past couple of days since entries were taken on Wednesday. And he joins me now here on HRRN. Jeff, good morning.
Mike, a pleasure. It's been a long, long time. Looking forward to my favorite day of the year. You know, it's interesting because at Woodbine we have the King's Plate, and that's got a bit of a different feel to it. You know, that's a big Canadian event. It is a race in which is storied in history. But then you get to the mile day, and this is where we almost welcome in all the visitors from all around the world. So it's kind of unique that we have these two different big days now at Woodbine. It's a lot of fun.
And to have a turf course like the E.P. Taylor turf course that is so welcoming to Europeans, to horses coming from the United States, and as you said, from all over the world, man, what a huge feather in the cap of Woodbine.
Yeah, and we've been very, very blessed. Like, we've had a lot of people support us throughout the years, and one of our biggest supporters has been Godolphin and Charlie Appleby. I mean, the fact that he continues to send these horses over, it helps that he wins a lot of races here, too, but, I mean, he's been a huge supporter of us. I mean, Chad Brown's bringing a French import over to us as well, coming up in one of the races that we'll get to earlier on in the card as well. So, you know, we've had a lot of great supporters throughout the years, and, you know, a lot of European horses have done well in the mile in the past. I realize, you know, we only have one this season, but it has been a major, major stepping stone towards the Breeders' Cup Mile. I don't think there's ever been a better prep throughout the years than what the Rico Woodbine Mile has been when it comes to the Breeders' Cup Mile.
No, I don't think there's any doubt. This segment is our Road to the Breeders' Cup segment, and I couldn't think of anybody better to visit with on this particular morning when you're talking about 3 Breeders' Cup win-and-you're-in races. And let's start with the first of those 3. It is race number 6. It's the first of the 4 greatest stakes, which will be run in succession Saturday afternoon at Woodbine. It's the Grade 1 Summer, a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. There are 11 horses entered in this one, and let's just throw this out there, Jeff. I'm sure you'll cover it, but there are fillies that are cross-entered in both the Grade 1 Summer and the Grade 1 Natama. So I'm going to let you break it all down, but let's start with the Grade 1 Summer.
Well, what I find interesting at Woodbine this season, I don't know what it's been like around North America, but I have found the fillies of the two-year-old variety have been very, very strong at Woodbine. Like just absolute monsters. And I can't wait for the Natama coming up a little bit later on that we'll get to. The one thing that I think happened is I think a lot of people looked at it and said, man, the Natama is going to be a massive field. Let's just cover our bases, and just in case cross-enter. And don't forget, the cross-enter costs you money because you're essentially entering in 2 different races. So they get a peek at both races now. But, yeah, you're right. There are a bunch of fillies that have been entering this race. If I were to guess, I think the filly that I'm really high on, Erosa, I think she will go in the Natoma. Again, that is just a guess for me, but we'll get to her a little bit later on. The talk of Woodbine is a very young horse by the name of My Boy Prince. He's number 3 horse in this race. He shockingly lost his debut at 80 cents on the dollar, but boy, did he redeem himself second time out. And then, Mike, what happened, he went into what we call it's Yearling Sale Stakes Day, where horses that have gone through the local sale get a chance to go for some good money. And he only had a couple of works going into that race because he had missed time with a foot abscess. And all he does is he runs a 95 buyer. And he won by 14 lengths. Now, obviously, the waters get a lot deeper, but I'm really, really curious to see what he is capable of doing. I'm not going to pick him in here because I think he's going to be a little bit overbet. But from a local point of view, I can't wait to see what My Boy Prince is capable of doing.
Yeah, I think, like you said, he lost his debut as a heavy, heavy favorite, comes back, wins his second race by 6 to break his maiden, and then wins the Simcoe by 14. I think all it did was just tick him off a little bit that he got beaten his first start because he's taking it out on everybody now.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. In terms of some of the shippers that we have in here, Carson's Run, who is going to be my pick in here, I thought ran a good race with anticipation. I thought he was going to win it, and then here comes the filly that was able to defeat that one, that being Bella Brand, that was able to get up late to pull off the win. So I really like Carson's Run. Super Ted for Cassie got really hot pre-race, but did put in a bit of a run to finish 4th in that debut performance. King of the Track, I think, is an interesting runner. Golden Canary, I'm very curious to see what race she elects to go into. She ran very well in the Soaring Free to pull off the victory. But the guys, obviously, they're going to go in this race because the fillies have an opportunity to go in the other race. I really think that Carson's Run for Christophe Clement is a very intriguing entrant for me. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that horse, but I thought got caught a little bit off guard by the filly beating him on that day in the with anticipation.
Yeah, it comes out of that Grade 3 race at Saratoga, so maybe a class edge for Carson's Run over some of the other contenders in the Grade 1 Summer. Do you think, back to My Boy Prince for just a minute, because we talked about how impressive he was and being Ontario bred, there is a certain buzz. He's kind of the hometown horse, if you will. Do you think his best race, does it stack up against a horse like Carson's Run?
It's such a massive move up in class for him. The surface is a question mark. The quick comeback is a bit of a question mark. I think his best run puts him there, but I just think, like, from a betting point of view, Mike, I'm just going to see what he's installed at the morning line. He has 3-1 on the morning line, so he's been installed as the favorite. I can't. At a low number, I'm leery of betting them in here, just because I was so impressed with him, but this is just a whole different kettle of fish. Like, we're a different surface, different caliber of animal. There are question marks with my boy Prince. I respect the horse a ton, but I just think from a betting point of view, I've got to put my money elsewhere.
All right, we're going to talk about the other Grade 1 winning you're in for the juvenile division. That's the Natama for the Juvenile Fillies Turf. We'll get to that in a minute, but there is a race in between the summer and the Natama on that 12-race program. It's race number 7. It is the Grade 3 Vigil Stakes, 6 furlongs on the all-weather. A field of 8 has been entered into this one. How'd you see that one, Jeff?
I don't know if you're much of a sports fan when it comes to horse racing and stuff like that, but do you ever find there's those teams that, they have that one superstar and the superstar retires and they just find the next superstar? It's amazing how that happens. Bob Tiller, he is amazing. So he has Pink Lloyd, who we all know had an amazing career, and then he has this horse by the name of Patches O'Houlihan, who's named after a dodgeball character, the movie Dodgeball. Mm-hmm. And Patches O'Houlihan just emerges and gets better and better and better, and I'm starting to think, man, oh man, this isn't going to happen again. But Mike, I got to admit, I thought in the Bold Venture he was biting off more than he could chew. I mean, he was taking on open horses, older horses for the first time. He looked like he was going to get swallowed up at the top of the stretch, and he just kept on going. I was really, really impressed with him. He really stamped himself as one of the best 3-year-olds on the grounds with that performance last time out. I'm a big fan now of Patches O'Houlihan. I was beforehand, but he really proved to me in that most recent race he's the real deal.
Yeah, and Robert Tiller, let's face it, no stranger to being around good horses. I mean, the guy's incredible. What makes him so good? What do you think allows him to keep churning out this type of talent year after year?
You know what? Obviously, he's had some great clientele, but I think he learned from some great trainers when he first started off his racing career, and he's been on the Woodbine backside forever, and I just think he's a horseman. I just think he's a horseman that knows how to campaign a horse. Like, a lot of people said, send Pink Lloyd down to the States, try him on the turf. Well, Pink Lloyd retired with over $2 million in the bank account and 26 stakes wins, so he obviously campaigned the horse pretty well. So he has planned this horse's career very nicely as well, and he just seems to put them in the right spots and has them peaking on the right days, as a matter of fact. So I'm going right back to Patches O'Houlihan coming up in the Vigil.
All right, Patches O'Houlihan for Jeff Bratt, who is my special guest on this segment here this morning, going down the road to the Breeders' Cup. You can catch Jeff on television up there at Woodbine, does a tremendous job with all of his selections, and you can follow along throughout the entire meet. Jeff, let's go on to the 8th race, which is the Grade 1 Natama Stakes, $500,000 purse. This one for the 2-year-old fillies, and some real talent in here.
Wowzers. This is the race of the day. I don't even know where to start in here. This is just a lovely, lovely event. I don't think Dazzling Star for Appleby is going to be good enough to win this race. Listen, you can never discount Appleby, but I don't know. I didn't love the last race. I thought it was just a so-so performance. I think I'm going to try and go in a bit of a different direction in here. You've got American trainers represented here. You've got George Weaver. You've got Todd Beatty represented here in this spot. Chad Brown, Christophe Clement, Sherry DeVoe, Kevin Rice. I mean, everybody's trying to get themselves a ticket, an automatic berth for the Breeders' Cup.
Isn't there a guy named Cassie in this race too?
For a long, long time. I'm not going to jump off her bandwagon to catch a glimpse. She was able to win. Ready to Jam. She did have a trouble trip in that race. She's represented in here for sure. She's a contender. Ozera, I thought, down at Saratoga had a great off-the-pace performance. The second-place finisher came back to win. Fifth-place finisher came back to win. But, Mike, this is like me going to a buffet, man. I gotta stop off at every station and take a long, long look. And I just hope I make some smart decisions along the way.
Yeah, and Air Rosa, I was talking over you, I think, when you gave out the pick. Air Rosa, the horse that you really like in here, coming out of that win in the Catch a Glimpse. And I was saying, we were going through all of the different names that are in this race, all the different trainers represented. There's a guy named Cassie that wins a lot of races up there, too.
That is true. That is very, very true. He's got a very nice one in Golden Canary. And Golden Canary actually lost first time out to Air Rosa. And then I think Mark wanted to not face Air Rosa, so he ran her against the boys in the Soaring Free, and she was able to win. But now they have the rematch here coming up on the program on Saturday, so that should be a lot of fun. Can you imagine, this many 2-year-olds? It's going to be fireworks at the top of the stretch at Woodbine.
Okay, so if this really is a buffet as you described it, Jeff, give me – Erosa is obviously the first thing you're reaching for on the buffet. Give me the next two things that you're going to reach for, and maybe we can put together a trifecta.
Then I'm going to go for a little Ready to Jam at 10-1. I'm going to toss in that one on my plates. And then I'm going to toss in a little Ozera at 10-1 as well. So 6, 8, and 12 for me. And listen, when you have a morning line favorite in here at 3-1, that I'm leaving off my ticket, that just goes to show you what type of buffet we got in here. Lots of great options.
Yeah, outstanding race. That Grade 1 Natama race number 8. The race following it is the final of the 4 greatest stakes races. It is the Grade 1 Rico Woodbine Mile, $1 million purse. Winning you're in for the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile Division. Master of the Seas comes in for Charlie Appleby. He won it last year with Modern Games. William Buick back aboard for Godolphin. Is he the winner?
He's even money on the board. He's the best horse in the race. I don't think there's any question about that coming in. Although Cheryl Spite's a pretty nice horse, too. I probably shouldn't say that. But Master of the Seas is one of the better horses in the field coming in. But Cheryl Spite obviously finished second the mile last year and seems now to be getting back on track with the 4th place finish in the King Eddie. What I am very leery about, though, Mike, is the pace scenario in here. This could be Town Cruise version 2.0, where he just went to the front and kept on going. I think that's why Cassie entered My Sea Cottage. I think he's very leery of the fact that there's no pace in here, and he wants to make sure that Lucky Score and Ice Chocolat have something to run at. I don't know if My Sea Cottage is good enough to go the entire way up front. That is why I'm laying on War Bomber as my pick. I think he gets first run. I think I'll be in front at some portion of the stretch. And then I'm very leery of Master of the Seas being able to wear me down. If he does get the pace up front, Master of the Seas might just be too tough and might go right on by me. But I'm going to take a shot with War Bomber, just hoping to get first run over Master of the Seas. Master of the Seas, definitely the horse to beat. I respect the horse a ton. But the pace scenario, there's just not much pace in this race other than My Sea Cottage.
Yeah, coming out of that win in the Grade 2, King Edward ran well, too, in the Connaught Cup the race before to finish second. So War Bomber in great form and maybe a bit of an upset play coming up in the Woodbine Mile. That's at least what Jeff Bratt is hoping for. And, Jeff, it's always fun to catch up, my friend. Just before I let you go, fill me in on a couple special wagers or different things taking place on this day at Woodbine. Is there anything in particular we should throw out?
Thank you for bringing it a lot. So we have some pick 4 guarantees. For example, there's a pick 4 starting off in race number 9 with the guaranteed pool there of $250,000. As per usual, we've got the early pick 5 guaranteed at $100,000. That should be a lot of fun. We have a mandatory payout when it comes to jackpot power pick 6. That will start off in race number 7. So you name it, from a wagering point of view, we've got you covered. Lots of great opportunities, and some of the undercard races are a lot of fun as well. But the race office has very smartly put the most difficult race of the entire day right in the middle of the program, and race number 8, that being the Natama Stakes. And we just want to thank you, Mike, again for always being so supportive of us here at Woodbine. You do a tremendous job, and always a pleasure to catch up with you.
Oh, I love it, man. You guys do wonderful work up there, and the product is tremendous, and more great wagering opportunities coming up Saturday afternoon. You can go to @Woodbine Bratt if you want to follow along with Jeff on Twitter. That's Woodbine, BRATT. Jeff, appreciate it, man. All the best. Enjoy the day, and we'll talk again soon.
Mike, feel free to reach out anytime. Always nice to catch up with you.
You got it. Jeff Bratt here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Yeah, tremendous day of racing there, and they really do an incredible job. If you've never been to Woodbine, put it on your bucket list. Make sure you take a trip north of the border and visit them during their race meet, because it's it's really something. The facility's beautiful, the turf course is beautiful, the racing is great, and put a few shekels on a couple of horses while you're up there, and you'll really enjoy it. Stay with me. Plenty more to come on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Churchill Downs 14-day September meet runs now through October 1st. The September meet starts the kickoff to the Road to the Kentucky Derby with the $300,000 Grade 3 Iroquois on September 16th. The meet will also showcase many horses preparing for the Breeders' Cup in the Grade 3 $400,000 Ack, a win and you're in for the Dirt Mile division. With more than $3.7 million offered on the stakes schedule and purses powered by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund, you are not going to want to miss the September meet at Churchill Downs. For more information, visit churchilldowns.com.
Adina Stallions set the gold standard, all #1 in their category. Point of entry, the #1 stallion by black type and greatest stakes winners standing in Canada.
Oh, the classy point of entry would not be denied.
Shaman Ghost, the #1 second crop sire standing in Canada.
It's Shaman Ghost, an overwhelming force in the last 16th of a mile.
Signature Red, the #1 stallion by percentage of black type winners standing in Canada.
Signature Red won his second Highlander in a row.
And Silent Name, the #1 stallion by percentage of black type performers standing in Canada. A list that includes Grade 1 winner Silent Poet.
Silent Poet in front. Admiralty Pier out the ground, but Silent Poet has won the Highlander Stakes.
And don't forget Adina's new sire, American Guru. His first crop are now yearlings of 2023. American Guru, the son of Unbridled Song, whose family have already set their gold standards around the world.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
2,800,000. That's 7. Go hey, but to get down time. But to get 2 million time. 809. 8 but to get down 3. But to get out again. Mike 3 saw and 9 now 3. But to get 3. But to get 3 million time. At 3 now 1. But to get both out both 3 and 1. I'm on EC again. 3,100,000 saw at 3 to 1. But to get 3. But to get 1. 3 million 1 at 3. But to get 1 1. But to get Mike for the done. 3,100,000 through and done. And thank you. 3 million. And everybody else, 3 million. 3 million. 1. I have EC. 3 billion. Thank you.
Mike Penna back with you here on the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires. That's the way it sounded at Keeneland this past week. There were 30 horses that sold for $1 million or higher in the first 4 days of the Keeneland September Yearling Sale. That one there, a colt by Into Mischief on Anona Mia, bringing the highest price thus far of $3 million, consigned by Lane's End, acting as agent. And what a tremendous first 4 days it was, and I know that nobody is happier about that than Keeneland announcer Kurt Becker, who you hear on the microphone during the race meet, but also during the sales as well. Kurt joins me now. Kurt, good morning.
Mike, it's good to be on with you.
Yeah, great to have you aboard. And listen, 30 horses selling for $1 million or higher in the first 4 days, and then you see that one that we just heard, $3 million for that colt by Into Mischief. The action came hot, it came often, and it was consistent all the way through.
It really has been, and that was the voice of auctioneer Scott Caldwell, who was on the stand when that colt sold. And regarding that particular colt, the Sail Topper, that is a colt that belonged to Mike Rapoli. And, of course, a lot of your listeners know Mike from having seen those familiar orange and blue silks at the winner's circle at so many Grade 1 races in recent years. And Mike was, my understanding is Mike was on the fence because he's obviously a guy that races a lot of stock and races at the top level. And I think he kind of went back and forth. Do I want to leave this colt in the sale? Do I not? He's such a nice colt. Well, finally he said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and sell him. And it was really special for Lane's End. You mentioned the fact they were the agent that represented the colt. And Alaire Ryan from the Lane's End staff told me just not long after the horse sold, she said the thing that made it so special for them, she said, Mike's been a good client of ours. And she said, that was a colt that we actually foaled at the farm, raised at the farm. So the staff at Lane's End had really invested a lot of time with that particular colt, so it meant a lot to everybody involved.
Interesting you should bring up Mike Rapoli, and yeah, a perfect tie-in to that sale-topping colt so far, at least. Mike's comment afterwards where he said that he was attempting to be the leading buyer and the leading seller at the sale. I thought that was it was pretty funny. It was true Mike Rapoli style, but I thought that was interesting, and he had a shot after that first $3 million horse.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and Mike is. I don't know Mike well, but just watching him from a distance after that horse sold and just watching him this week, his mind is so active. You can tell he is constantly thinking about whether it's racing, whether it's breeding, whether it's selling, whether it's buying. He did buy 3 yearlings by Uncle Mo, and of course that was a horse that he owned when Uncle Mo raced. And, when Mike Rapoli goes to the sale, when he buys 3 by Uncle Mo, yeah, I suppose there's some sentimentality involved for him. But Mike at heart is a businessman. So if he bought those 3 colts, he bought them because he believes they've got a future.
There are some prominent names when you look at the buyers who participated at Keeneland this week. And you see not just Mike Rapoli, but Jacob West and West Bloodstock, who was purchasing horses for Mike Rapoli. Donato Lani, who has had so much success as a bloodstock agent. Winchell Thoroughbreds, Shadwell Racing, OXO, Larry Best, OXO Equine. Kurt, it just goes on and on. There were so many people across the board that were able to find what they were looking for at this sale. Talk about that a little bit.
There has been a really good depth and diversity among the buyers that have been represented here, which is an excellent sign for the future of the sport. How about some you mentioned some fantastic names that are very familiar and have been at the top level of the sport, and it's great to see them keep reinvesting, those individuals. And then there have been some new names pop up. A man by the name of John Stewart, the founder of Middle Ground Capital. John has gotten involved in a big way. He has bought over $7 million worth of horses this week, and he is relatively new to the game. Jim and Dana Bernhard, they bought Pin Oak Stud. Pin Oak Stud's a familiar name, been around a long time, but the farm changed hands just a few months ago, and the Bernhards have invested $5 million here at the sale. Another individual that comes to mind is Aaron Wellman from Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners. Our friend Jude Feld, he played a role in getting Aaron involved in the game many years ago, and saw Aaron just a day or two ago. And here's somebody through his Eclipse stable. I mean, Aaron has invested around $4.5 million so far this week. So it's been fantastic to see that kind of enthusiasm.
Yeah, and then you have people like Terry Finley and West Point Thoroughbreds and Mandy Pope's Whisper Hill Farm, Spendthrift active as well, both on the selling and the buying side. So, some really prominent people, and great to see so many people getting involved on the buying side. And, of course, the consigners have to be happy with that response, too.
They do. And you mentioned Mandy Pope. What a fantastic thing to see. I think she has sold 2 yearlings for $1 million or more this week. And Mandy is someone that we've all watched as she has gotten involved in the game, and she has put together an incredible broodmare band. And it takes time to bring that to fruition. You don't see results from that overnight. But now that, as I think as our director of sales operations, Cormac Brannick, had put it when he looked at the results, he said, this is a testament to what Mandy has been doing. She's been planning for the long game here, and it's fun to see those things happen. The folks at Gainesway, Brian Graves, the general manager, wow, what a sale that they've been having. Gainesway has sold $30 million worth of horses so far. I've got to mention, Mike, I think that's a testament in part to Brian's late father, Bill Graves. I've talked to so many people over the years who had such high regard for Bill as a horseman. Brian learned a lot from him, and I think you can really see where he is reaping the benefits of that knowledge now with his career.
Visiting with Keeneland announcer Kurt Becker here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. So, Kurt, give me your top couple of takeaways from the first 4 days of the sale and what it might mean for the rest of the sale going forward.
I think the strength of the market would be the top story, and here's why I say that. You look back a year ago, and Keeneland had its first ever $400 million gross. That was at the September sale last year. and there was a record September average and a record September median. So, the old show business saying, what do you do for an encore? Well, so far, the gross has dipped just slightly. The median is up, the average is up, and we had 30 yearlings for $1 million or more last year, and so far this year, we've had 30 for $1 million or more. So I think the strength of the market is number one. I'd say another thing that I think there have been some fantastic storylines that have come out of this sale, two in particular that I believe are terrific milestones for consigners. Jody and Michelle Huckabee with Elm Tree Farm, they've been selling for 35 years, and they realized a wonderful milestone this week. They sold their first yearling they've ever represented, sold for 7 digits. Same for Penn Sales, based in Bourbon County. That's a family. They've been selling. Penn Sales has sold with Keeneland for just over 50 years, but their family involvement goes back to the 1940s. They sold a $1 million yearling for the first time. So there's not only been strength in the market, but there's also been, within that strength, there have been some fantastic storylines as well.
There is a number involved in thoroughbred auctions or auctions in general called RNA, which is a buyback rate, meaning horses don't meet the reserve that people place on them. The buyback rate has increased slightly from last year. Last year it was 25.50. At this year's September sale, it's been 28.67 cumulatively over the first 4 sessions. Should there be any concern about that creeping a little higher, or is that just kind of cost of doing business type of thing?
I think that that is certainly something that I know our management has commented on, and they are certainly aware of it. One of the things that helps in that situation is a number of years ago, Keeneland added the post-sale situation where folks can submit a bid, and at least a number of those horses have been getting sold after they have gone through the ring. But with that being said, yeah, there are always challenges, even in a good market. There are always challenges that arise. And certainly that's the kind of thing that, while yes, overall the sale has been terrific to this point, certainly there are still those parts where you look and you say, whatever the situation is, a sale company has still got to be aware of the fact that, yeah, there are those moments. There are kind of those sticky parts in with the market that unfold as the week develops. And sure, it could be any number of factors, but I don't think at this point, I don't think it's a reason for concern per se, but it is something of which one needs to be aware and try to do better as best as we can.
Going forward, Kurt, the complexion of the sale now changes after the first couple of books. You get a day off on Friday, come back here on Saturday, and move forward with the rest of the sale. What do those results from the first 4 days mean going forward?
I think one of the things that can happen, Mike, is when a sale starts out and when overall the strength has been very positive, sometimes you will talk to buyers who will say, well, I got shut out in book 1 or I got shut out in book 2, maybe hadn't originally planned to stick around for book 3 or book 4, but now they're planning on doing so. So I think that it can have a positive effect in that regard, where there are people who will still have money to spend, money to invest as we move forward. The other thing is there are some terrific sires still represented coming up. We sell all the way through book 6. I mean, book 1 is done, book 2 is done. We've got a long way to go. We go all the way through hit number 4,200, and right now we're right around 1,200 hit numbers into the sale. So take a look. There are still some horses by Into Mischief, by Candy Ride. You've got young up-and-coming sires represented, horses like Flame Away and Motown and Catalina Cruiser, Global Campaign, his first crop. He's a half-brother to Bolt Doro. So there's still a lot on the horizon. And I think the other thing, Mike, is as we keep moving forward, there is something for everyone. I don't care at what level you invest in race. I don't care if you're an end user, if you're buying to resell. I think there's still a lot of opportunity coming up in the sale.
Well, in 20 days, you're going to be able to listen to Kurt Becker call the races at Keeneland. And, Kurt, I've told you this before. I'll say it publicly. What you do twice a year for the short time that you actually call races, picking up the binoculars and the microphone and not missing a beat year in and year out, to me is remarkable and as smooth as could be. And I know everybody's excited to see that in 20 days. And I know everybody's really excited looking forward to your Stroll Through Racing History segment, which is presented by Keeneland every week. That's coming up in just a little bit in hour 3 of the show. And so many people have reached out to us on social media and on email and even text messages to me to tell me how much they enjoy those segments, and I know you truly enjoy doing them.
Well, I appreciate the fact that HRRN and Keeneland give me a platform to do that, because this is such a magnificent sport with a rich tradition and history, and it's fun to bring those stories out. And Mike, you mentioned the race meet coming up, and earlier you had mentioned the name of Larry Best, OXO Equine. And, of course, Larry is one of our leading buyers at the sale. He's always one of our leading owners at the race meet here. And I ran into him a few days ago, and I'm always nervous. In the program, his name is always listed Lawrence Best, and I never want to be too informal on the mic. So I asked him, and he said, no, he said, everybody knows me as Larry. Just call me Larry. And you might have known this about Larry Best. OXO Equine, that name comes from the fact that at one time in his life he played basketball. So OXO comes from the X's and O's of basketball strategy. So if your listeners have ever wondered, why does Larry Best race under the name OXO Equine, it's a tribute to his basketball playing days.
Interesting. I did not know that. That is fantastic. What a great story. And this is why, folks, this is why Kurt Becker has been part of this network for so long, working with us on Breeders' Cup and Triple Crown and so many of the big races. His research, impeccable. And Kurt, those kind of stories, to me anyway, are extremely fascinating, and I really do appreciate you taking some time here this morning. I appreciate all your hard work, not just with us, but with Keeneland too, and Motorsports Radio Network when you're working with them. Very talented, my friend, and really appreciate the visit here this morning.
Mike, thanks for the coverage that you give our racing and our sales at Keeneland. We appreciate it, and I hope everybody has a great fall campaign, and looking forward to more sales and racing coming up.
Keep the momentum going, my friend.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mike.
Kurt Becker here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. When I come back, I'll get you ready for hour number 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed, Versailles, Kentucky.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with a crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment. Email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
I'm William Shatner. I've been around a long time, but I'm truly humbled when I see the real battles our brave, paralyzed veterans have faced defending our freedom. And when they come home.
I had just come home from serving over in Germany. Next thing I know, it was 3 weeks later. I was paralyzed.
While parachuting with my platoon, my parachute didn't open, and I broke my neck. It left me paralyzed for the rest of my life.
I was on a routine patrol, and we were in the desert of Kuwait, and the vehicle flipped and landed on top of me, which left me paralyzed from the waist down.
Okay, folks, this is heroism. That's why I'm proud to support Paralyzed Veterans of America, because they've kept their promise to never leave a fallen soldier behind. A roof over their heads, accessible homes, cars, jobs, benefits.
PVA has brought me back to life.
Show them their sacrifice hasn't been in vain. Go to PVA.org to learn how you can make a difference.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcast using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow, or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Well, not a lot of time to take a look at many historical dates in racing history, but I'll give you one. It was July 16th, 1998, that Breeders' Cup Limited announced that new $1 million turf race, which was going to be added to the Breeders' Cup Championship Day. It was for fillies and mares, and it would begin in 1999. The race would be called the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, and it would be run at 1.25 miles, and it still is part of the program to this day. Well, 2 hours down, 1 to go here on the Equine Forum. When I come back, I'm going to kick off Hour 3 with this week's edition of the TwinSpires Triple Play. Scott Shapiro will join me to give you 3 races you can keep an eye on later this afternoon. 10:20, Kurt Becker will take you on his weekly stroll through racing history. And at 10:30, I will once again welcome trainer Dale Romans, turf writer Tim Wilkin on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. If your local station is leaving us at this time, keep listening to the third hour of the program nationwide on Sirius 216 XM 204 in the Louisville, Kentucky market on ESPN 680 or streaming at horseracingradio.net. Hour 3 of the Equine Forum is next, right after I pause. 10 seconds for station identification. This is HRN.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
And it's Wise Dan under a hand ride. Now Johnny Velasquez shows him the whip. Last 16th of a mile. Wise Dan, a jaw-dropping performance to win the Rico Woodbine Mile.
They go to the final furlong, and she's just rolling and rolling with enormous strides. Oh, she's long gone, and Catch a Glimpse is going to absolutely demolish them. And Catch a Glimpse wins the Natalma hands down by 5 lengths.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Final 16th, Halo Najib taking the lead. Court Vision exploding on the outside. Halo Najib, here comes an acceleration from Court Vision. Court Vision up in the shadow of the wire to get the victory in the Iroquois.
And here comes Set Piece on the far outside. Set Piece set down. Set Piece on the outside, and Alto to dispute it with a furlong left to run. And the far outside is Public Sector trying to pick up. Here's Set Piece to get there. Set Piece in the Baltimore-Washington International Turf Cup.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Welcome back. Hour 3 of the Equine Forum, racing toward the finish line, but still one more hour to go and still plenty of great content coming your way. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, with you on the Horse Racing Radio Network. This, of course, is where horse racing comes to talk, and plenty more to talk about here on the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires over the course of the next hour, including our TwinSpires Triple Play, which comes your way momentarily with Scott Shapiro. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20, and at 10:30, Dale and Tim will both be here to debate some of the hottest topics in the sport today, and, by the way, answer a couple of questions submitted by listeners. We'll do that in our final segment of the show at 10:30. I Ask, They Answer. Poll question today: which of the 3 Breeders' Cup Win in Your In races being contested at Woodbine this afternoon most likely to provide us with a Breeders' Cup winner at Santa Anita in November? The Natalma, the Summer, or the Woodbine Mile? You can go to @HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook to cast your vote, and you can continue to email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, and let me know your thoughts on which of those 3 races most likely to provide us with a Breeders' Cup winner at Santa Anita. Well, time now to begin Hour 3 as we do every week with this week's edition of the TwinSpires Triple Play. And to do that, I say hello to our good friend Scott Shapiro. Scott, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Happy Churchill September meet time, and lots of other good racing across the country. Good to be back with you.
What a program today, huh? What a way to kick it off.
Yeah, it's a great card, and I think of all the races, and we'll talk about it as one of my plays, I thought the Pocahontas amongst all the stakes races came up as about as strong as I can remember, but a very fun card, some good maiden races, and of course 5 stakes races to sink your teeth into as well.
In the beginning of the show, Scott, I talked about the fact that the Iroquois, which is the other race that for the 2-year-old boys later today, and you mentioned the Pocahontas for the 2-year-old fillies, the Iroquois has yet to produce a winner of the Kentucky Derby the following year. In stark contrast to that is the Pocahontas, which has produced winners of the Kentucky Oaks. So I don't know if that streak ends in 2024, but all streaks are meant to come to an end at some point. Maybe this year's Derby winner is racing in the Iroquois later today.
Could be. I think like normal, it's a solid field. There's 1 or 2 horses in here that I think maybe have some upside to get that 1.25 miles way down the road here. But it is an interesting stat, especially because the race is run at Churchill. One thing to note on both the Pocahontas and Iroquois before we get into the triple play is both of those races used to be run at 2 turns. Now they're a cutback to the 1-turn mile, which I think helped draw more runners perhaps, or maybe a higher quality field. A lot of guys maybe a little leery on sending horses 1 mile and 1/16 this early with some first-time starters that have maybe won and whatnot.
Okay, all 3 races you selected for today's TwinSpires triple play are going to be contested at Churchill this afternoon. Race 7, which is the Pocahontas, race 9, and then race 11. So let's take them in order. We'll start with race 7, that grade 3 Pocahontas for the 2-year-old fillies. The purse is $300,000, and as you just mentioned, 1 mile, a 1-turn mile on the main track. How'd you see the Pocahontas?
Well, firstly, I saw this as the best Pocahontas I can remember. I know it's a grade 3, but it could easily be a grade 1. You've got a number of impressive debut winners. You've got the top 3 from the debutante at Ellis Park, and you've got the return of VV's Dream, who was a highly regarded Kenny McPeek runner this spring. But I landed on one of the first-time starters that impressed me in number 1, Empire Island, 5-1 on the morning line for trainer Norm Cassie. The rail draw, not ideal at the 1-turn mile, but this is a filly that overcame the rail draw at 6 furlongs at Saratoga back on August 6th. And one thing to note, filly was set to debut on opening day at Saratoga and had been training really well, had a minor issue, was scratched out of that, and then missed a work or two before that August 6th performance, which was a eye-catching one in my opinion, and there's no reason to believe that she can't move forward with more ground. The dam Gull Island is a half to Birdsong, of course, won the 2017 Ali Sheba amongst many other races.
Is the rail draw going 1 mile at Churchill Downs usually okay?
I don't love it at all. I'd much rather be outside as far as, way outside and way inside.
Yeah.
But if you kind of watch this horse's trip on August 6th, you could kind of hope it goes like that. That was a 9-horse field. This is a 9-horse field as well. And she broke okay, but it ended up kind of separating to the point where she found the pocket, and then she was able to split horses. If it's congested, I don't like my chances. But if they separate a little, which I think they will, I think there's some speed in here, I think it could work out fine. And don't be surprised if this filly is sent aggressively from Ricardo Santana Jr., an aggressive rider already from the rail.
What do you think of the morning line favorite? You almost had me.
I can see both. They can go both ways on this filly, but usually when you say that, Mike, on a 2-1 morning line favorite, you're probably going to take a chance against her. Now, she had 2 awesome wins to start the career, but that was a long time ago in the life of a 2-year-old, and that was 4.5 and 5 furlongs. Now, Brett Cox was pretty open about her needing the race potentially in the debutante back on August 13th when she broke slow and was tugging throughout. I think she had an excuse that day if she needed the race. I think she can move forward, but I do have some questions about the added ground.
Number 6, VV's Dream, also expected to take some money in here for trainer Kenny McPeek, 5-2 on the morning line. Last time out was the beaten favorite when squaring off against Brightwork, who we know came back to run huge in her next start. That was in the debutante at Ellis Park. VV's Dream, do you give her a shot?
I do. I think she's maybe the most talented filly in here, along with Empire Island, and that's saying a lot because there's some serious runners in here. But we haven't seen her since that debutante, where at the time it looked like her losing at 1-5 was an issue, but of course Brightwork coming back and winning both the Adirondack and the Spinaway. So VV's Dream, I think, may end up going off as the favorite in here. We'll see, but it is a tall task coming from off the pace, off the layoff against the quality group.
All right, Scott Shapiro going with number 1, Empire Island, 5-1 on the morning line. That would be a very mild upset in the Pocahontas, but an upset nonetheless, solid value if indeed she stays at 5-1. The second leg of the TwinSpires triple play that you have selected is the Grade 3 Iroquois. This one for the 2-year-old boys, race number 9, post time, 4:55 Eastern. What do you think? Who wins the Iroquois?
Well, I think it is sort of a 2-horse race as much as one can be in a 2-year-old race at this point of their careers. And number 8, Risk It, is the deserving 2-1 morning line favorite. Was awesome at Saratoga on debut, breaking from the inside and never looking back in front-running fashion. But I think Patriot Spirit has a close to equal chance, if not equal chance, and he's going to be a significantly better price, I would guess. I was really impressed visually, Mike, with this Michael Campbell trainee at Colonial on August 25th. Absolutely won for fun. Windsor was the 4-5 favorite of Michael Stidham Godolphin horse that was in front of him, and he made that one he laughed at him, basically. Never asked, on absolute cruise control throughout. Now adds a furlong, but getting 7 furlongs at first asking, not an easy task, so a good sign that this horse did it and did so easily. And I like drawing outside of Risk It and the other speeds in here. Should work out a perfect stalking trip under the veteran Jesus Castanon.
You know, earlier in the show, I had a chance to visit with Jesus Castanon, and he talked in depth about Patriot Spirit, and then got into talking about several other things with, riding races at 50 years old and still competing against the young kids at his age, right? Which I'm sitting here at 52. I don't think Jesus Castanon is old by any stretch of the imagination. But Patriot Spirit, a horse that he said they were concerned about getting the 7/8 of a mile in his debut on August 25th. But when I asked him, okay, if you were concerned about the 7/8 that day, are you concerned about the 1 mile distance today? He was quick to say, no, not at all.
I bet not. I mean, he was a passenger for sure, and I bet he's absolutely extremely excited to ship in here to Louisville and ride this horse, and what could earn him some Kentucky Derby points. Of course, the road to the Derby kicking off, and man, this horse did it right. We'll see if he gets into a battle, how he handles it, but couldn't have been much more impressive visually.
Yeah, decent value at 7-2. Do you think he stays there, or does he maybe even drift up a little bit?
I think Risk It's probably going to be closer to the even money range, and I think Patriot Spirit will probably be about 3-1. I mean, the other horses in the field are good, but I don't think they're going to attract money, and I think they're maybe a step behind those top 2. So I think it will hurt Patriot Spirit's price, the fact that there are really not a ton of really exciting options outside of Risk It in himself.
Okay, number 9, Patriot Spirit for Scott in the TwinSpires triple play, leg number 2. You can go to TwinSpires.com to bet all 3 of these races any way you like. Just make sure you're doing it later today at TwinSpires.com. All right, race 11, a $120,000 maiden special event. I don't know if I'm ever going to get used to saying that, right? These are stakes race purses, and we're running for that kind of money all over the country now, but certainly in Kentucky. 6 furlongs on the main track. Anything can happen here. Plenty of first-time starters. What do you think?
Yeah, this is the second division, if you will, of a 2-year-old filly maiden special weight, with race 3 being the first. And I thought this leg came up much, much stronger. I would probably have picked at least 4 or 5 of these fillies in the other race, but I did land on one of the many first-time starters in here. In fact, none of these fillies have ever raced other than number 11, High Shot. But I landed on number 7, Sweet Gal of Mine, a Pamela Zybert's homebred, trained by Michael McCarthy, and this daughter of Dialed In. Good pedigree, a half the sharp Azteca, who was an extremely impressive maiden special weight runner on Derby week as a 3-year-old for these same connections, earned a 93 on our Brisnet scale. Very impressive. Hasn't raced back since it ran so big. Hopefully we see that one soon, but this one is out of the dam So Sweet It Is, who was 4 for 10 in her own right, and really been able to watch a couple of these workouts via Bruno DeGiulio's website. A great asset if you're want to look at works in the Kentucky scene. And I thought the September 1st workout 2-back was extremely impressive. Not fast, but just the way she did it. So I'm going to roll with number 7, Sweet Gal of Mine, and like you said, a race where pretty much the majority of the field would have a chance, because there's some pretty well-bred fillies in here.
Do you have a horse or two that you like with Sweet Gal of Mine that might boost up the exactas and trifectas?
I do. I like number 4, Clear Voice, who's 10-1. Cherie DeVoe Firster, a half to Vegas Magic, who won her first 3 starts of her career, earned $247,000. And then the one to beat might be number 1, Intricate, but the rail draw, in a full field of young 2-year-olds, not ideal, but this horse has been training extremely well for Brandon Walsh, who's been on fire. And then you have the 2-1 favorite, number 10, Regulatory Risk for Chad Brown. Certainly has a chance, but in this wide open group, I'm going to leave that one out, hoping to get some better prices in there.
There you have it. Scott Shapiro with this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. He begins with race 7 at Churchill, the Pocahontas. He'll take number 1, Empire Island, at odds of 5-1. Race 9, the Iroquois. He'll take number 9, Patriot Spirit, at 7-2. So he goes to the inside post and then the outside post for his first 2 selections. And then race 11 at Churchill, number 7, Sweet Galabine, a solid price at odds of 8-1 in her debut, the daughter of Dialed In for trainer Mike McCarthy. Scott, great selections, at least on paper they look to be. Let's hope that they deliver the way we hope they will, and people can cash at TwinSpires.com. I'm assuming with the meet getting rolling, the September meet at Churchill, there will be plenty of offers and incentives at TwinSpires.com.
No doubt about it. We've got the Thursday leaderboard each day here at Churchill, and the Thursdays are individual contests. So if you missed yesterday, don't worry, you're not behind. You can just play next week. Everyone starts anew, and then there's a bet back race every day here at Churchill. I know it's the Locust Grove on today's card later on, one of the stakes events, but always tons of stuff. Go to the TwinSpires.com/offers or the offers tab on the app.
As good as it gets. Scott Shapiro here with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Scott, really appreciate the visit as always. Good luck at the windows. Have a great weekend and cash lots of tickets.
Thanks, Mike. Always good to chat, and enjoy the day of racing.
All right, we'll talk soon. That is Scott Shapiro with the TwinSpires Triple Play. When I come back, I'll turn it over to Kurt Becker, who takes you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History. And still to come, Dale, Tim, I ask, they answer, 10:30 Eastern. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Achieve Equine, makers of Flair Equine nasal strips, brings you innovative, evidence-based products for the health and well-being of your equine athletes, like the new Impact Protection Half Pad from Europe, VIP Equestrian, that provides a superior layer of cushioning for the horse's back. Visit achieveequine.com for more information on the innovative products we offer. That's achieveequine.com. Breathe easy, we've got your back.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
Present moment, trying to hold off the competition, but Sister Luann has come with a rush on the outside. And then Sister Luann has taken the lead. Sister Luann and Jose Ortiz have won it.
Sister Luann, the daughter of Darley Stallion Frosted, took home the top prize in the $500,000 One Dreamer Stakes last Thursday at Kentucky Downs, one of 2 stakes winners for Frosted this past weekend. Her victory makes Sister Luann your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Darley Stallion Frosted, the sire of 8 Greatest Stakes horses this year. No stallion standing for under $50,000 can top him. Frosted stands for $10,000 live foal. Learn more about Frosted and all the Darley Stallions by visiting DarleyAmerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. He was a California-bred colt which raced for a newspaper publishing executive and was named for a piece of equipment used in the printing business. His name was Flying Paster. Foaled on February 24th, 1976 at Murrieta Stud, southeast of Los Angeles, Flying Paster was a homebred which raced for breeder Ben Ritter. Born in New York City, Ritter had earned a degree in economics from Princeton University and had seen action at Midway during World War II. He had risen to become chairman of his family's newspaper publishing concern and had relocated in the 1950s to California, and in 1974 had merged with fellow thoroughbred owner John Knight to form Knight Ritter Publications. As for Flying Paster, the colt was a son of California-based sire Gummo, and it was because of Gummo implying something sticky that Ritter chose the name Flying Paster for his colt. In the newspaper industry, a flying paster referred to pasting one roll of newsprint onto another without having to interrupt the presses. It was said by some that Flying Paster's pedigree was that of a sprinter, but observers noted that he neither looked nor acted like it. He was big, nearly 17 hands tall, and rugged, and he had shots of Count Fleet, Determined, and Native Dancer in his pedigree, all of which indicated potential to cover a longer distance of ground. But as trainer Gordon Campbell said, he'll still have to prove it. With jockey Don Pierce aboard, Flying Paster made his career debut as a 2-year-old on May 27, 1978 at Hollywood Park, drawing clear to win by 5 lengths. He then finished runner-up in 3 consecutive races at the same track, all stakes races, including a second-place effort in the Hollywood Juvenile Championship behind the filly Terlingua, who was destined to become the dam of leading sire Stormcat. But Flying Paster seemed to improve when the racing scene went to Del Mar, where he won the De Anza Stakes on August 16th. He then stretched to 1 mile and won the Balboa Stakes, and on September 13th, he won the Del Mar Futurity in stakes record time for his 3rd straight stakes win. All those wins came at Del Mar, and all had come as the odds-on favorite. Campbell rejected the idea that Flying Paster had improved over the summer, instead noting that the colt's winning streak seemed to be a product of his affinity for Del Mar. Campbell said that while Flying Paster had struggled to get hold of the track at Hollywood Park, he could bail out of the gate at Del Mar, take hold of the track, and lay anywhere he wanted with regard to the early pace. When asked to describe Flying Paster, Campbell said he's powerful and perfectly balanced, and he has a calm disposition. Campbell described him as an intelligent horse, a beautiful colt to handle and train. Campbell went on, saying, "Some say this colt does not have a pretty head, but I think it looks pretty good in the winner's circle." Moving from Del Mar to the Oak Tree meeting at Santa Anita, Flying Paster won the Grade 3 Sunny Slope Stakes by 7 lengths as the 1-2 favorite before returning 11 days later to capture the Grade 2 Norfolk by 5 lengths at 1 mile and a 16th at odds of 1-5. Flying Paster had won 5 consecutive stakes and had earned over $300,000 by the end of his juvenile season. But a colt in the East named Spectacular Bid was also making headlines and would win the Eclipse Award as Outstanding 2-year-old Male. It would, of course, begin a string of 3 consecutive years of championship titles for Spectacular Bid, culminating with Horse of the Year in 1980. Flying Paster would still enjoy considerable success, winning the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby and Hollywood Derby in April of 1979, before finishing 5th and 4th behind Spectacular Bid in the Kentucky Derby and Preakness, respectively. He would add another Grade 1 score at age 5 in the San Antonio before retiring with 13 wins from 27 starts and over $1 million in earnings. Flying Paster would earn 5 consecutive titles as California's leading sire before passing of a heart attack at the age of 16 on August 22, 1992. He also attained status as California's highest-ranked sire nationally in more than 10 years. At the time of Flying Paster's passing, journalist Jay Hubdy wrote that Flying Paster was the Joe Frazier to Spectacular Bid's Muhammad Ali. He called Flying Paster a relentless puncher, head down and churning, never letting himself become distracted by the casual brilliance of his flamboyant rival. Hubdy added that Flying Paster was more than a high-class second banana, calling him a rare racehorse which entered at the top of the game and improved every year. His misfortune, said Hubdy, was that he lost when the world was watching, most notably in the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness, and became a horse for aficionados instead of the masses. Hubdy summarized by saying, quote, "Flying Paster laid down in his stall and passed away, but he left us plenty to remember," end quote. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
And And once again, my thanks to Kurt and to Keeneland for making those segments possible each and every week. If you have missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments, all you have to do is head back over to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can check out the special podcast page dedicated to those stories and listen to every single one. There have been some amazing ones. Go back and listen at horseracingradio.net. When I come back, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, they will be here. It is this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
You're listening to HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Airdrie Stud is proud to announce the arrival of Grade 1 winning millionaire Happy Saver for the 2023 season. Happy Saver boasts one of the most important female families of the century, as his third dam is Broodmare of the Year Weekend Surprise, dam of the legendary AP Indy. Undefeated in his first 5 starts, Happy Saver capped off his perfect 4-for-4 season with an emphatic victory in the historic Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
And Happy Saver stays undefeated. He steps up and he wins the Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
Airdrie Studs, Happy Saver. Think about it.
Warfront. This son of Danzig ranks among the world's elite sires. Ranked number 1 by percentage of stakes winners, graded stakes winners, and Grade 1 winners. No stallion has a better strike rate. Warfront is the sire of over 100 lifetime stakes winners, including some of the sport's most talented runners both at home and abroad. The leading turf sire of 2022 by stakes winners and stakes performers. Warfront, standing at Claiborne Farm.
Our friends at Millridge Farm are known for raising quality runners off their farm. In fact, just since 2000, Millridge has raised or sold 36 Grade 1 winners, nearly averaging 2 a year for the last 20 years. This year at the Keeneland September Sale, they have a quality group of yearlings sprinkled throughout the sale. And believe me, it matters that you are able to buy a yearling that you know has been raised with the horse in mind and whose record of producing horses at the highest level speaks for itself. Position yourself to fulfill your dreams by considering yearlings this Keeneland September Sale from Millridge.
This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
They're off the turn. Dennis's Moment strikes the lead right at the top of the stretch and builds a 2-length lead. Now a 3-length lead for the final furlong. Love Does battling on, but is back into second. Scabbard trying to come on late. Rowdy Yates is fourth. There's 1 furlong to go. Dennis's Moment with a 5-length lead. Scabbard with clear sailing up into second, but Dennis's Moment kicks off the road to the Kentucky Derby in a big way. He barely moved a muscle, winning by 2. Scabbard was second, farther back it's tight for third.
Dennis's Moment provided our man Dale Romans with the third of his 4 Iroquois winners in 2019, and now may be the greatest horse ever to stand stud in Wyoming. What? Yeah, no horse has ever pulled off the Iroquois Kentucky Derby double, so it would maybe be right, or it may be wrong to say that Dale Romans is better off not having a horse in this year's renewal. Plus, should we be surprised about the results of Heiss's investigation into the equine fatalities at Churchill Downs this spring? And how important are speed ratings for both horsemen and horse players? Those topics and much, much more are straight ahead as we begin year number 3 of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin, all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business, and all starting just 30 seconds from right now.
Learn the business of horses in the world's only accredited equine business program, the University of Louisville Equine Business Program. The University of Louisville has a legacy of excellence educating and developing industry leaders for over 35 years. Classes are taught by industry experts in state-of-the-art facilities located in the heartland of America's equine industry. The University of Louisville Equine Business Program. When it comes to horses, we mean business. For more information, visit business.louisville.edu/equine.
All right, guys, first things first, before we dive into a plethora of topics that we have to cover for our listeners here this morning, I neglected last week to wish both of you a happy anniversary. We celebrated our 2-year anniversary of I Ask, They Answer last Saturday morning. Of course, today begins year number 3. So, guys, happy anniversary. On behalf of myself and HRRN Nation, really appreciate you guys doing this with me every week.
It seems like yesterday.
Where's the cake?
Okay, you're always about
Timmy,
the food, Timmy.
Yeah. Timmy, we're still talking about joining the union, right?
Yeah, I think we should, don't you?
I think so. We lasted this long. It's time to start getting united.
Join away.
Renegotiate.
Well, we appreciate all of our listeners, too. This has become one of the more popular segments here on the Equine Forum every Saturday morning, and podcast, by the way, on all of the podcast platforms. And we receive so much positive feedback, and we thank all of our listeners. And we thank you for submitting your questions, too. We have 2 more listener-submitted questions on this week's edition, so let's get to it. Topic number 1, this is not from a listener. This is from me, guys. HISA held the press conference this week to announce the results of the organization's months-long investigation into the 12 equine fatalities that occurred at Churchill Downs this spring. The results stated that no specific cause or discernible pattern has been determined. Should we be surprised? Dale, what do you think?
No, I didn't expect them to find anything. I mean, there were different surfaces, different spots on the racetrack, different injuries. You know, we all knew that going in. It would have been surprising if they could have, and I wish they could have. I wish they could have found something that you could say we could go out there and fix, but it doesn't surprise me.
It seems to me that this is like finding the proverbial needle in the haystack, because it just seems impossible that they're ever going to find anything. Injuries, you know, we all hate them, but they're part of the game, and it's been that way since the game started. You know, that it's, I guess, Heis is coming under the gun because they came out and had this big investigation and didn't come up with anything. But I didn't expect they were going to come up with anything. There's just so many intangibles that go into it. Yeah, their goal is to get to 0 fatalities, but that's almost impossible too. That's never going to happen. I give them credit for trying, but they're never going to be able to come up with answers, I don't think. They can do it till the end of time. I just don't think there's any answers out there.
Dale, where does the sport go from here? At least where does Churchill Downs go from here now that these findings are out there and there's been nothing to kind of hang our hat on to say this is what the cause was?
Well, that's the problem. That's why I say I wish we could have found something that we could have said, hey, we know what it is now. We can fix it. The track was off. This was off. But it wasn't. And so all we can do is just keep trying to make the tracks as safe as possible. We've talked enough about the new technologies that are coming into the sport to try to figure out injuries before they become catastrophic. And all we can do is keep trying to make things better and help healthier horses. There's a lot of areas I believe need to be looked into. One is the corrective surgeries they do on horses to make their legs artificially straight so they look pretty when they sell it. You know, there's a lot of factors at play that are bigger than just what happened on race day, and I think we need to get into looking at the bigger picture.
That was one thing that came out of that press conference with HISA, where HISA does not have authority over any of the sales companies, Fasig, Tipton, Keeneland, but they have started to reach out to them, and in an attempt to work with them in good faith, hopefully, Dale, eliminate maybe some of those problems or find ways to work toward eliminating some of those problems that you just mentioned with the younger horses that show up at auction.
Yeah, I don't care if HISA has the authority or not, or if they're involved or not. It's time for us to police our own industry and figure it out. And, you know, all we need is like corrective surgeries. I'm sure a lot of breeders don't like it because they have crooked-legged horses and they can't sell them. But if you truly are about horse racing being as good as it can possibly be, what harm can a study do? If you don't think that it causes a problem, then the study will show that. And if it does cause a problem, we need to fix it.
Timmy, I would assume that the results when the findings come out from whatever investigations are taking place with Saratoga are probably going to end up being very similar to what we saw at Churchill Downs, and that's just me going out on a limb and making a prediction without knowing a lot of the facts, but I'm going to assume that there's not going to be anything to hang our hat on there either. If that's the case, are we back in the same boat of just like we're talking about with Churchill, just keep trying to do things and make the sport as safe as possible?
You keep trying. You keep trying to make it like as safe as possible. Like you said, it's very difficult to do that because, these are high-strung animals that are out there and, going at breakneck speeds. Injuries are going to happen, just like they're going to happen in football. They're going to happen in baseball. They're going to happen in basketball. But it's always going to be something that's out there. I mean, the thing with Saratoga this year, because, on two of the biggest days of racing there were two very high-profile deaths of two undefeated 3-year-olds in Maple Leaf Mel and New York Thunder it was horrifying to watch. And yeah, you want to get that out of the game. Is it possible? I don't know. There's just so many accusations that are made with things like this, and it has to be cleaned up. But is it the track? There were an awful lot of fatalities at Saratoga this year, and there was an awful lot of rain too. So, yeah, study will help, but I don't know if it'll be the answer.
Yeah, earlier in the show, I had a chance to talk with Unsung Hero as I went ahead and referred to him in our Unsung Hero segment. That was Harrison Young Jr., who's the director of racing services at Colonial Downs. They just completed a 100% safe race meet at Colonial, and I understand there are people that say, hey, wait a minute, what are you talking about that for? That's the way it's supposed to be. That's not news, but in light of everything that's taking place in our industry and the environment we're all operating in now, I think it is news, and I think it's positive, and hopefully the sport can take a few things away from what was done at Colonial this meet and apply it to other racetracks. And I understand you have different climates, you have different racing surfaces, different variables with every single racetrack, but maybe there's an opportunity there to learn something going forward for this industry. All right, topic number 2, guys. Churchill Downs announced new claiming rules for their upcoming meet. A trainer must have made a start in Kentucky since July 7th. Claimed horses must not race outside Kentucky for 60 days following the end of the meet or January 1st, 2024, whichever one comes first, and there must be a signed claiming agreement on file. So I ask you, what type of impact are those changes and those new rules going to have on horsemen and on bettors? Timmy, what do you think?
I read that and I just laughed a little bit because it seems to me this is a direct shot at Linda Rice, the New York trainer who did an awful lot of claiming down in Kentucky. I think it was like 20, maybe 25 horses this year. And she went into Kentucky, took the horses out and ran them in New York. I think the rule was wink, wink directed at her. And that's all I got to say about that.
There's a lot of states that have claiming rules to try to hold the horses in state. And I don't have a real problem with it if they want to come up with one. Linda Rice was a problem for a lot of people coming in here and poaching. I mean, it's a compliment to our region that the horses are better than they are in New York, that she thinks she needs to come down here and poach our horses. But the problem I have with this is it's a house rule by Churchill Downs. And it's not a regulation. It's not a law. It didn't go through the vetting process that all rules and regulations have to and go through Frankfurt. Churchill decides to write a rule and stick it in the condition book. And my question is, how do you enforce it? Who's going to come down on you if you do something different? And it could hold up in court, and I don't think it could. Now, what should the Racing Commission come up with a rule to try to protect Kentucky horses and keep horses in Kentucky? Maybe they should. There's a rule in New York. There's a rule in Florida. There's a rule just about everywhere where horses have to stay. In Florida, you have to, after a claim, you can't leave the state for 90 days. But then you got a problem with it. Somebody challenged those rules in Indiana. He said, I put my money up and I buy something. I should be able to do whatever I want with it. And he won. And if anybody challenges Churchill rule, they'll probably win. And I think that's the reason the Kentucky Commission is kind of slow play. They're trying to figure out how to do it legally. But as far as the rule goes, I couldn't care less. I have started claiming horses. It'll be fine for me, but I just think house rules are about bad precedent. I don't think that Churchill should do it, just like I don't think they should have the right to just come along and kick Bob Baffert off the grounds. I think that it all should go through the regulatory bodies.
There's going to be a lot of layers to this going forward, too, and I'm sure we'll hear more about those new claiming rules and the impact they have, whether it's legally or otherwise, going forward. All right, guys, it's that time of the show now where we get a chance to welcome our good friend Nick Zito to the program and find out if the following statements are right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
All right, a few of these for you here this morning, guys. Number one, the Grade 3 Iroquois for 2-year-olds begins the road to the 2024 Kentucky Derby at Churchill later today with 231 days to go until Derby 150. Would I be right or wrong to have a case of Derby fever this early? Is that right or wrong?
Right or wrong. Am I right?
Yeah, Nikki, what do you think? Nikki wants to know if I'm right or wrong. Timmy, what do you think? Am I right or wrong?
Well, it is September 13th, 14th. What is it? 15th,
16th,
16th. You know, it's we're not even at the Breeders' Cup yet. It's pretty hard to get Derby fever right now. I'm sure if there's a horse owner or a trainer that's running in the Iroquois, they might be thinking Derby fever, but then again, they might not. I think that it's always good to start thinking about the Derby, but you know, let's get through Halloween, let's get through the Breeders' Cup, let's get through Thanksgiving and Christmas when I get my presents from Dale, and then we'll go from there to start to get on Derby fever.
See, now I'm totally opposite. I get Derby fever the day I buy them as a yearling. And it just keeps on going. It just builds and builds and builds. I realize no Iroquois winners come back and win the Derby, but I'd sure like to have one in it this year. That's a fun race to win. It's the first points, and it gives you a little bragging rights for a while.
I think, though, too, it's different from my perspective than it is for a horseman. I don't own a horse. I don't train a horse. I cover the horses. So for me, it's hard to get Derby fever right now, but I can see from your point where you would.
Yeah, well, as soon as you get a young one in the barn, it's a big, pretty colt. It travels well. You start thinking Kentucky Derby and how do I get him there? And believe me, if you don't start thinking it early, you won't ever get there. It's not something you just back into.
Dale, you probably answered our third right or wrong topic with that statement right there. I was going to ask you if I was right or wrong to say that you're probably much better off watching the Iroquois from the sidelines this afternoon as opposed to being in it because of the fact that no Iroquois winner, including the 4 that you have trained, have gone on to win the Kentucky Derby the following year. So are you better off just sitting back and watching it?
I hate being a spectator. I want to be in the game. We'll worry about getting there after the race. I wish I had one in it.
And, you know, the other thing, too, I mean, it's still it's a $300,000 race. It's not like they're running for popcorn and peanuts. I mean, this is it's a major race. And, yeah, they haven't had a lot of success going forward to Louisville on the first Saturday of May with 29 starters. When there's been 1 second and 1 third, but there's also been a horse that was in there that was the Derby favorite, Harlan's Holiday, that came out of the Iroquois. He was the favorite back in the Derby in 2002. Didn't win, but he was the favorite. So there is some credence to having a horse come out of the Iroquois, even though it's in September.
All right, let's move on to topic number 2. And we'll stick with the road to the Kentucky Derby because the next 3 points races after today are being run at the Curragh, at Newmarket, and at Longchamp as part of the European Road to the Derby. Guys, would I be right or wrong to ask, who cares?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Dale, right or wrong?
You're right. Who cares? You know, all those points around the world, bringing horses in, knocking legitimate horses that have chances to win the race out. It's strictly about trying to build a fan base in those countries and getting them to bet on the Kentucky Derby. Those horses will never come over here and do any good. Who cares?
I agree. Who cares? I mean, the European road started in 2018. I think there's 7 races in Europe for that's not including Japan. It's just in Europe, and there's been no horse that's come over since this road started. I mean, there's been horses that have competed in those races that have come over, but in the past. But I'm with Dale, man. I don't want them knocking out our horses.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating for American trainers, American owners, all the connections involved in horses that compete here and go through the American road to the Triple Crown. And then let's just say, for example, a horse would come from Japan, as we've seen, or a horse would come from Europe. It takes a spot away from those other horses. Now, look, if you're trying to go for a global event like the Breeders' Cup, okay, then that's fair. But guys, I don't like it either. I don't like the idea of that. And Dale, it's got to be very frustrating for a horseman.
It's very frustrating. If you're the bubble horse and you think you would have a chance, and you're giving up a spot to a European, so we get a little extra betting on the Derby. That horse has no chance. It is frustrating. I mean, if they got a chance, come on over and compete and win your points here, just like we do, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, from a bettor's perspective, it's not so frustrating. That's one less horse you have to worry about. Automatic toss for the Europeans and the Japanese horses. All right. That is right or wrong. We're going to do it all over again with our friend Nick Zito on next week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. A couple of topics submitted from Ed in Kentucky, who emails the show, and he has a question for Dale and he has a question for Tim. So, Dale, here you go. In making decisions where to enter your horse, do you look at speed numbers for your horse versus the speed numbers it took to win that type of race, the condition, the surface, the distance, whatever? And are speed numbers of value to you in determining a good spot for a horse?
Not for me. I mean, for a lot of guys, it works. They like them. They study them. I'm more old school. I like to know where my horses ran, the class of the races, and I hardly ever use numbers to handicap or pick a spot to go. I mean, they're just a mathematical formula that somebody came up with. If I ever thought somebody came up with one that was foolproof, then I'll probably pay a lot more attention. But I think you could talk yourself out of some wins looking at that stuff.
Yeah, interesting. Timmy, he has a question for you, too. Ed wants to know, we often see comments that a horse is moving up or down in class. If two horses both have an 80 speed rating in their last race at the same track, same distance, and same surface, but one was in an allowance race and the other was in a $25,000 claiming race, are the two horses competitive with each other?
Well, I don't think so. I think the allowance horses are obviously running against better competition. The claimers are not. It would liken it to like an allowance horses running against college guys, and the claimers are running against great grammar school kids and getting his number that way. I don't think they're competitive with each other myself. No.
It's interesting.
It's one of the big mysteries in horse racing. You can see a horse running a claiming race and run 11 flat, and the allowance race the same day going 11 flat. You put that claimer in the allowance race, you won't find him with a search warrant. Right. And nobody's ever understood that.
But it's always been there.
Yeah, it is. And another thing about numbers I think is interesting, this is my own, what I've observed. They might work better if it's at one place, one person writing the numbers, and everybody's equal. But when you move from region to region, it's like if you're running a Belterra here in the Midwest and you're running a 12 Ragusan and you come down to Churchill Downs, you're not going to run a 12. And that's the problem. That's, to me, is the flaw in the system of numbers. It's supposed to tell you, take out all the competition, every angle you look at, and figure out this is what this horse is capable of running. But you'll see it all day long. Horses come from cheap tracks with good numbers and run up the track when they get with real competition.
Yeah, and I think here's the key if you are going to be using numbers in your handicapping. When I first got into betting horses, my very first introduction, when I was just learning how to bet, there was a gentleman that would come into my dad's convenience store every day during the Saratoga meet and even sometimes during Belmont and Aqueduct and all the New York tracks running. And he would buy a racing form, and he would sit down, and his name was Lonnie Froyo, and he would make his own speed numbers. And then he would take his top three numbers in every race, didn't care about class at all. It was all about speed. He'd take his top three numbers, and he would box them in an exacta and a trifecta every single race. And he would win. I mean, he wouldn't win all the time, but like all of us, he would hit some big numbers. But the key was you had to be consistent. You couldn't deviate. You couldn't start looking at class and have that change your opinion. You had to be completely pure to the numbers that you were seeing in front of you, and whatever your numbers told you, you had to bet it that way. That's the key.
There's a lot of people like that, and you do have to be committed to the way you handicap.
Yeah, sometimes I wish I wasn't committed to any kind of handicapping. I can tell you that most of the time anyway. But even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. But yeah, if you're going to use numbers, you got to be committed to those numbers, and you got to play them consistently every single time. Ed in Kentucky, we appreciate the questions. If you have a question for Dale and Tim or a topic you want to hear them debate, email that to me, mike@horseracingradio.net. They love getting questions from our listeners, and we will work those into the show going forward for you. All right, guys, before we get to our final point of the week, a quick update on the showdown. Last week, Dale opened up a pretty big lead, or at least he was sitting on a big lead going into last weekend's races. Michael's Aqueduct All-Stars, our listener Michael Riley, who is competing against Dale and Tim, racked up a 10-point win with Private Creed at Kentucky Downs. He is drawn closer to Dale now. Dale still holds the lead, 39-37 over Michael. Timmy yet to get underway. He's sitting there in the third position at 12, but he has some big guns ready to roll later in the fall to see if he can defend his title, but a long way to go to catch our man Dale Romans, who is sitting in front right now with 39 points.
And getting ready to draw.
Well, Dale Romans, the gloating man.
Confident.
I like that.
Confident.
Michael came out on social media and said that he was sitting in the perfect spot now. He's in the stalking position going up the backside.
I'll say one thing. That guy knows this game.
Yeah, he does.
Did I tell y'all I met him in West Virginia?
You did. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, this could come down to the wire. The Showdown 2 ends on Breeders' Cup Saturday, so a lot of things will still happen, and a lot of things still yet to change over the course of the next couple of months, but should be a fun stretch run as we wind down the Showdown 2. You can check out the latest standings on our website every week at horseracingradio.net. All right, guys, here we go. Time for your final point of the week. Timmy, why don't you kick it off for us this week, my friend?
Well, I just returned from 2 weeks at Kentucky Downs, and I think I talked about it in the last couple of weeks, but what a great time it was. But just a little bit of a shout-out to Tyler Gaffleone and Brendan Walsh, who were the leading jockey and trainer, and Ken Ramsey was the leading owner for the short meet. It's got to be a tough thing to be able to do that in such a short meet, so good for them. And also a shout-out to my man James Atkins from Virginia, who was a big fan of the show, and he brought his horse hidden class back for another try in the Untappable after winning an allowance, finished fourth. But he's a huge fan of the show, and he says that Dale Romans is his favorite trainer.
He's my favorite fan of the show.
Dale, what's your parting shot?
And my parting shot is, I really do appreciate everybody who comes up and mentions the show and says how much they like it, or if you don't like it, come and say that too, and critique us a little bit. And we really do like getting the questions from the fans of the game, and they're all very good questions, and we got a lot of educated players out there, so just keep them coming.
Keep them coming. Keep them rolling in to Mike at horseracingradio.net. Guys, really fun show. Appreciate the insight. We'll do it all over again next Saturday morning.
See you guys.
Sounds good.
All right, enjoy the races. Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin with me here on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer, as they are every week, and it's all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program in the College of Business. I'm back with more. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Hi, Tony.
Hey, Matthew.
There's a reason why Tony's Steaks and Seafood is my favorite restaurant. It's because I want to feel part of the family. Isn't that right, Tony?
That's right. There's a saying on the wall that I truly believe in. There's always room for one more at our table. We just want you to be part of our family.
And believe me, you will be. It's Tony's Steaks and Seafood right across from Triangle Park. Visit them at TonySteaksandSeafood.com.
My battle buddies and I attended the NHL Stadium Series at Yankee Stadium. We had never been there before, and two of us had never seen a hockey game. Man, we had the time of our lives. It was great therapy. VetTix, we can't thank you enough.
Every empty seat at a concert, a game, motorsports, or a play is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service member. We can help. We can give our veterans a special event where they too can create their own cherished memories. Find out how by visiting www.vettix.org. That's www.vettix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to Dennis Melvin's house. It's time for the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course. Sticking to healthy habits in this kitchen is going to take focus and determination, but it can be done, JB.
He's already entered the snack part of the course, and he's eyeballing a jar of chocolate candy.
That is tempting right off the start.
Uh-oh, he's reaching, Bill, but he pushes it away.
Great stiff arm.
He's approaching a plate of delicious-looking iced cookies.
Oh, Dennis, you only want one of those.
He blows right by him for the apple.
Oh, the fridge. It's make or break time, JB.
He stares down some rich-looking treats. Uh-oh, looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle, and shuts the door with his elbow in record time.
Unbelievable move. I gotta see that again.
And he's out. He even turned off the light.
That's the way you execute a midnight snack run.
Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Thursday evenings, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, is the Brisnet.com call-in show. It's your chance to call in and let the Horse Racing Radio Nation know what's on your mind. Call us at 888-966-HRRN. That's 888-966-4776. And discuss the topics you choose in the world of thoroughbred racing. The Brisnet.com call-in show on Sirius 216, XM 204, and streaming live at horseracingradio.net. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Trying to come after the top pair now. At the rail, Empire Island. Ruby Queen is in fifth, 6 lengths off the lead. Then Helsia outside Holiday Road. They're at the top of the stretch, and Lady Moscato is up to take the lead. Before You Go-Go is coming professionally on the outside. One from the rail. Empire Island is trying to get into it too, and Empire Island coming after Lady Moscato late. Lady Moscato, Empire Island on the inside. Lady Moscato wandering. Empire Island on the inside. It's going to be close between those two. Empire Island wins it by a length. Lady Moscato second. Before You Go third. Ruby Queen was fourth.
Frank Miramati with the call. Empire Island getting that maiden-breaking victory upon debut at Saratoga. The daughter of Classic Empire with the victory, and now going to be one of the horses to contend with in this afternoon's Grade 3 Pocahontas at Churchill, that 1 mile event scheduled as race 7, 3:50 Eastern. And by the way, if you were joining me at the top of hour number 3, and if you missed it, you can go back and check out the podcast, but Scott Shapiro gave out Empire Island as his top pick as part of this week's TwinSpires Triple Play, one of 3 races that you can bet at TwinSpires.com later today. Don't forget, there is no better way to follow racing, breeding, industry news, and more than with Blood Horse. There are so many different platforms which they bring it to you. You have bloodhorse.com. You have Blood Horse Plus, the Blood Horse Daily app, Blood Horse Magazine, and their social media, where you can join more than 296,000 followers that Blood Horse has on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. No one covers thoroughbred racing, breeding, and our sport like Blood Horse. For more than 100 years, it has been Blood Horse. Well, fun segment there with Dale and Tim, talking about many of the different initiatives that are taking place in racing, those HISA non-findings, if you will, into the investigation with the horses and the fatalities at Churchill Downs this spring, which caused Churchill to move their meet over to Ellis Park. And I agree with Dale and Tim. I don't think anyone really expected that Heiss's investigation was going to come out with that one singular thing to put your finger on and say, this is what is happening at Churchill. It's the surface. It's the climate. It's, I don't know, whatever you want to point to. But they didn't. And I don't think that should be surprising to any of us. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that that's probably going to be the case with any investigations that take place at Saratoga. And earlier in the show, you heard from Harrison Young Jr., the director of racing services at Colonial, talking about their 100% safe racing meet. And I think that's a big deal. It's the standard we're all striving for, but perfection is unattainable. And it was attainable for Colonial Downs, which makes it such an incredible accomplishment, which is why I wanted Harrison to be this week's Unsung Hero, and the team at Colonial that put so much time and effort and work into it. But Harrison brought up a great point, and I think this ties into some of the things that HISA is trying to figure out. Harrison said it's not just about him and the team working at Colonial Downs, but it starts first and foremost with the horsemen who are preparing their horses to get them to Colonial Downs for that meet. The type of horses they're bringing there, the way that they're training those horses, bringing them up to that. And I think that's a big factor. And I think that's not necessarily the one thing we can point to either, but I think that the point that Harrison makes is valid, where it takes everybody to figure this out. It's not just an organization like HISA and investigators who are going through all the different tests on the racing surface and in the barn areas and all the different things that they're trying to do, but it's about the horsemen coming together. It's about the industry coming together. Dale brings up, and I ask the answer, the fact that he doesn't like a lot of the things that happen with young horses before they get into the sales ring. That's part of it. It's an industry problem, and the industry, in order to fix it, needs to come together. It's that simple. It is that simple. No easy solutions, but unity and togetherness, moving in the same direction, is one way to solve this. Probably the only way. My thanks to all my guests for being with me here this morning. Lindsay Schultz for taking the time. I mentioned Harrison Young Jr., Jesus Castanon, Jeff Bratt, Kurt Becker, Scott Shapiro, Dale, Tim. It's been a very busy show. My thanks to everyone. If you missed any portion, check out the podcast at horseracingradio.net and on every podcast platform. My thanks to my producer, Lee Delapina, in our Lexington studio, and to Chauncey for handling all of our social media. I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening. Go Steelers. Let's get back on track.